A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen dictors. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop off the cork, have a glass of wine, that feels safe, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
All right, we're here. Hello.
We are here indeed. 201. I mean, 101. Damn
Good
it.
start, MauLer.
So close.
Thought I was the drunk one.
Which is off by
I feel
one
like
number. It doesn't make much difference.
Yeah, to be fair, it all blurs together when you're in the open bar. But it's good now. I feel like the pressure's off because we don't really have to impress anyone with this one. It's like, we had fun with open bar 100. Now we can just, we'll just coast.
Sort of breeze it now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's always good to have everyone back. We've got a nice lineup of guests tonight, and we've got the delights of the Acolyte. I feel like it's a real heaven and hell kind of scenario, really, isn't it? Because we've got the Acolyte to talk about. And then we got House of the Dragon. So
it is kind of funny because what was it? 2 years ago, it was House of the Dragon and Rings of Power coming out side by side.
Yeah,
wasn't She-Hulk in there somewhere as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Man,
it was the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah,
it's good though. Like, I love that House of the Dragon just comes out to renew our faith in cinema and TV a little bit. Every once in a while, so it's good. But anyway, we'll get to that in due course. But I guess first of all, as is the custom on the open bar, I'll give you some pointless information about the year of our Lord 2001, which is, kind of lining up with open bar 101. So would you like to know the top movies of the year?
Let's do it.
Okay, it was... Weirdly, actually, number one was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. That had 974 million worldwide. So
nice.
Just shy of a billion, which isn't bad for 20 years ago.
It was a bit of a phenomenon.
Yeah, the next one you might have heard of, The Fellowship of the Ring, I think. Is that the one I'm looking at?
So the Star Wars one?
Fellowship of the Ring, yeah.
Yeah, it's the one with the goblins or something, right?
It's some weird fantasy thing. I've never heard of it, really. But,
it was cute they tried that back then, but
Yeah, I mean, it did okay. It's like
didn't work out, Yeah. They made two direct-to-video sequels, I think.
Yeah. And, well, they gave us the greatest game ever, Lord of Ring Gollum. So
yes. Thank God they made something out of that franchise.
Yeah, but it also gave us Monsters, Inc. That was 2001. Shrek came out that year.
They say Lord of Ring Gollum gave us Monsters, Inc.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, all right, okay.
And yeah, in fifth place, actually, was Ocean's 11. That was the fifth most popular movie of the year. Although, weirdly, it's funny looking at it in today's numbers, because the fifth biggest movie of the year had 450 million worldwide. I mean... that wouldn't be considered very good by today's standards.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's always budget in reference to box office. That's how you know, within reason. But we don't do that anymore. You have to make at least $1 billion.
Yeah. If you don't make $1 billion, you're a failure. Yeah, it was also the year that gave us Mulholland Drive. To this day, I still don't fucking know what that movie was about. Vanilla Sky, I've got a real soft spot for that. I will defend that movie, and I think it was actually a pretty good film.
All right.
Donnie Darko. That was good. I remember watching it the first time around, having no fucking clue. I had to watch it a second time before I kind of got it, but yeah. Also, Super Troopers, a personal favorite of mine. I do. That movie is genuinely
funny.
amazing.
I think I saw Big Lebowski and Donnie Darko as a result of a family member being in media studies. They had to watch it, and so I was in the room. I was pretty sure I was playing on my Game Boy. And I remember being like, don't know what the bunny film was about, but the Big Lebowski was funny as hell. The bunny one was weird, but man, did I love the other.
But the year also gave us Zoolander, Black Hawk Down, and Fast and the Furious. That crazy franchise that spanned like 2 million movies began way back in 2001, and I was still in high school when it launched. I remember that well. But yeah, it was also, in terms of launches, it was actually the year that gave us Windows XP, the iPod for the first time, and the Xbox. They all launched in 2001.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It was a good year for games as well. We got Metal Gear Solid 2, Grand Theft Auto 3, Halo, Ico, Silent Hill 2, Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy X. Still think that's overrated because I hate Tidus. And Max Payne all came out that year. So it was an okay year, I would say.
Solid year for media, yeah. Got plenty to chew on.
It's funny because I wonder when we're going to get to that point where the good films start drying up.
So I'm thinking 2016 is going to be the first year where we're like,
where it's going to get rough.
17, 2018, yeah.
Anyway,
so we'll come across some interesting ones along the way.
Yeah, I should think so. It's funny. The next 2 years are going to get dominated by Lord of the Rings, but never mind. That's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, well, I think it's time we assemble our panel because we got things to talk about this evening. So let's bring the first guest on, shall we?
Yes.
Joining us from the land down under, it is Robot Head. Welcome back, man.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited. 2 great subjects to talk about.
Yeah.
And congratulations on the 100 episodes. I did like that you introduced this as 101. You don't have to try too hard. Let's have Robot Head on. That's
101, back to basics.
Yeah. It's like, what's the laziest guest I can think of? I'll do, I guess.
Yeah, well, I haven't been out of bed long, so I should be firing any minute now.
Yeah, you'll be fresh. You'll be fine. Get some
yeah.
coffee in you. You'll be good to go,
yes,
man.
I'm into it now.
Yeah, thanks, man. But it's always a pleasure to have you back. And who else would we have on board to talk about Star Wars than yourself? So, yeah, I think
I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot to say.
There is, yeah, and we'll get to that for sure. Next up, she's making her debut on the open bar. This is Snarky Jay. Welcome aboard, my lady.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. I was speaking to you like backstage just before we started here. I found out about your channel because of Tyrone Magnus. He was covering one of your videos, your open letter to Kathleen Kennedy, which was fantastic. Just really like laying out the state of Star Wars. And yeah, I was impressed by your content. And your channel has absolutely blown up in the past month. Like if I looked at your social blade and it's like, you've jumped like 700% or something. I don't think you're probably going to crack 100K on this stream, I would imagine.
I'm not even going to lie. The Acolyte has like single-handedly pumped up my time. Like it's so terrible, but also like just talking about it has been insane for the channel.
Yeah. Well, we always talk about this when a terrible Star Wars product or whatever comes out. Like, how many careers is this going to launch? Like, yeah, I guess yours is one of them.
You piss enough people off, and we're going to have to make channels about it.
Yeah. All righty. Well, welcome aboard. This is your first open bar, so hopefully you don't find it too horrific. So anyway, you'll get a chance to rant about the Acolyte shortly.
I'll cope somehow.
Yeah. And next up, we've got the Despot of Antrim making his return to the open bar again. Man, welcome back. Still rocking.
Thanks very much.
The awesome beard.
Yeah, I've got the kind of Victorian soldier beard going on. Yeah, thanks. And well said about Vanilla Sky. I think that's a very good movie, very underrated. It's one of those movies where if you watch it today, you sort of think to yourself, Jesus, did people think that was bad back in the day? And you compare it to the stuff we think is bad now, and you realize it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like how 90s B movies or movies that were considered bad back in the 90s, like Independence Day, by modern standards, they're brilliant.
Yeah. I feel like there's almost like this weird subgenre of like underrated Tom Cruise movies. Like things like Oblivion and stuff that people don't really talk about all that much, and Vanilla Sky. Like you could probably like fill a whole catalog of movie reviews just talking about films like that. But yeah, I got a soft spot for Vanilla Sky. I thought the chemistry between him and Penelope Cruz was really good in it, and I like the setup for it. It's actually quite thought-provoking, especially the ending. I like where it goes. So
yeah, there's a lot going on with it in terms of visual depth and everything. And you're definitely right about that Tom Cruise subgenre because Edge of Tomorrow, that took a while to catch on. That was basically ignored when it came out, but that's a great movie.
Everyone looks at it like, holy shit, that was amazing.
What are you saying, MauLer?
They're trying to drum up a sequel for that now, right?
I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure a sequel would do very well. I'm not sure it's quite gotten out of cult status yet. Has it?
I'll check. I could have sworn I remember reading something about it.
Yeah, I've heard little things about this. I just don't know if it's worth doing. I feel like the story was wrapped up pretty nicely with that first movie. because like, are you going to do another like Groundhog Day style thing, just repeating the same day over and again? Like, it just feels like, I don't know. That's a gimmick you can only really do once.
Yeah. There's notes about how there's calls for it and that the people are on board with making it, but it's going to be difficult to get it all in order.
Yeah. I want to see
Obviously, you
Emily
have to
Blunt
wait.
do more action roles like that. Like her character was fucking brilliant in that movie, and I don't know. I feel like she just needs to do more stuff like that.
It was also a great example of a powerful female character. Those words are just poison now. But a female character who could kick ass done well because she had a mech suit and she had relived the same day thousands of times. So she had practiced in the mech suit to the point where she was basically the best user in the world of the mech suit, which explains why she was so powerful in it.
Yeah,
So it's got that kind of. It's like the Bene Gesserit in June or similar in that there's reasons they're so powerful, whereas a lot of movies today, it's just, well, she's a powerful female character because she's a woman and women are powerful and yes, queen, and yes.
Isn't she one of the handful of actresses that have said things that are kind of interesting about the roles for women in Hollywood right now?
She was one of the most high-profile ones to just straight up speak out about this. And yeah, like, as you said, she said in an interview, if I get a script now that says a strong female lead, like if that's how they choose to describe it, I just bin it immediately and back out because I'm so fucking done with that stuff.
I can't remember if it was
exactly
Newly
right.
Rapace that said she like doesn't even want to play girls' roles anymore. She wants the male ones because they're the more interesting ones. They're the ones that'll actually have like nuance or flaws. It's like, oh shit.
It's a weird problem. It's a weird, I guess, a weird paradox that they've created for themselves, where the roles are fundamentally uninteresting for the actors now because they don't get to actually show any depth or nuance or vulnerability or anything. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, but I don't know. We at least have the Acolyte, and I guess we might as well talk about this. So I feel like I should just turn the bar loose on this one and see what you guys think. Episode 5. I described it as like the least terrible of the episodes so far because it was at least, it gave you entertaining visuals to look at. The writing was still horrible, but
I think I'm willing to agree it's the best one. Sure. But
yeah, I mean, the best, like a load of steaming ass. It's the slightly less warm and stinky one. It's still terrible.
That's my favorite colored turd.
It is like, instead of the usual 1,000 complaints, I've got 780. Like, oh, okay. Solid.
I mean, it's still a big steaming turd, but at least you can see bits of sweet corn in it. So there's
at least
there's something
to salvage.
I mean, yeah, like the impression I got is like, okay, the fight scenes are fairly visually impressive to look at. I could tell the choreographers did some good work on this one, which is nice. I would argue they probably go on a bit too long and it just becomes a little bit exhausting after a certain point. But that was at least engaging. And the fact that they're willing to actually kill off fairly important characters, and I say the word character quite loosely because they're just really like cardboard cutouts of people, but they still die. And so that's, again, something. So to show that, like, I guess it's proof that it's willing to do something to move the plot forward and have stakes. I just didn't care about any of the people involved. I guess that was the big problem there.
I would argue they did us a favor with Yord. I've been calling him Jedi Master Narc because he's probably the most annoying character I've seen in Star Wars in a minute.
His attitude towards Osha is weird. You know, like the previous episode where they arrive on that planet and she's got like a stun gun and he's like, I need you to give me that. Why? Like, I'm supposed to stay safe and this will help protect me. Well, you know, like you're a civilian and we want to keep you safe, so I'm going to take your protection away from you. And then the scene just shifts and like nothing actually gets resolved from that. And I just thought, why even have that conversation then if you're not going to do anything with it?
Because they had to show you that he's a pussy that's going to give in to her anyway.
He kind of does, yeah. Because he totally backs down later in the episode as well, where they're running away.
He follows her fucking orders eventually. It's cringe as hell. It's like you get these snippets of like, okay, because you know, it was discussed when we were checking it out, but like the nature of your master / a master telling you, I'm going to face down this person who's been killing all of us. You get the innocent person to safety, and you have to make the choice of like, I'm going to abandon someone that I care about to save this person. I have to do this. It's my duty. And to an extent, it's his duty to inform the rest of the Jedi of what's happening here. Could have achieved both of those goals, but he just sort of waddles away pretty slowly until she convinces him to go back. And you might be like, how does she do it? How does she convince him? It's like, well, she tells him the bad guy might kill everyone. It's like, oh, yeah.
That's generally what happens in lightsaber battles. Like, someone's going to kill someone.
Like, Master Soul's fucking point was, he might very well kill everyone. You're supposed to get out of here. So, it's really lame to watch Yord, who already had, I didn't care about him at all. But the one decision he makes in the whole thing gets undermined by his passenger that previously he threatened to knock out, by the way. I was like, hey, there you go, bit of spine. And then he just doesn't. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Carrying her through that jungle would have been interesting if he did knock her out. I thought it was a weird threat.
Yeah. I still don't understand how they're in this steaming hot jungle, right? And everyone's wearing 5 layers of heavy cloaks and armor and all this stupid shit. But it's environments don't mean anything. When they're on the snow planet, Osha is wearing just the same normal clothes that she wears, no problem. There's no sign that she's starting to freeze or anything. She's in a jungle planet. She's wearing the kind of gear that she should be wearing on a snow planet, really. She's more wrapped up than ever. And again, it's totally fine. What are you trying to show us with this? There's no.
And that's one of those. That's one of those things. That's one of those things that's makes the show fun and interesting. That's really easy to do. Like when Han Solo turns up in his blue coat in Empire Strikes Back, everyone was excited. We're seeing Han Solo in a different outfit. Very easy thing to do to set a scene and make it fun. And they don't even bother with that. It's just
that implies that they would put a little bit of effort into it, which is obviously not the name of the game anymore.
No, we can't have that.
Well, it's just they do put her in different outfits, but the outfits just don't have any connection to the environment she's going into. It's like she wears more clothes in the hotter environment that she goes into. It's just nonsensical. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, they went full potato sack for the jungle, which made sense. They love that potato sack look.
Stuff they were making in the 80s, like The Empire Strikes Back, feels far more realistic and lived in compared to the sets they're doing today, which just feel like movie sets. Because when Luke collapses on Hoth, you really feel the cold of that scene. It's so real. And when he's on Dagobah training with Yoda and he's wearing his tank top, basically, again, he looks like he's boiling hot in this kind of Florida swamp type place. Whereas, and those were the Yoda set was a soundstage, and you compare that to the Acolyte, and it just feels like the jungle. It feels fake, and one of the reasons is the costumes, and there's other little details with regard to costume because the Acolyte does even the little details. It does everything wrong. There are scenes where you look at the Jedi in Coruscant, and their clothes are absolutely pristine, like they've just been taken out of the plastic wrappers.
Yeah.
Well, we even got a scene of him doing his laundry, didn't we?
Is that just we had to show him shirtless because he
that was the most important thing we could do.
Yeah, what was that even about? I mean, he's not that impressive. Put your clothes back on.
I think it was literally just to humiliate the character a little bit because didn't the Padawan say to him "Ugh, put your clothes on"?
Man, that Padawan, she got to have the most impressive sword skills out of all the knights and the master. That's pretty interesting.
She's dual wielding lightsabers she's an absolute pro.
It's so lame. She should be the one that the master's constantly trying to protect and keep out of the fight. And I think it would be way more interesting for them to have a couple of maybe team-up moments based on the training they've had, but ultimately the Master wants her out. He doesn't want her anywhere near this. Instead, she's going full throttle, having the longest solo battle with the Sith who can take on, 4 people at once. I was like, oh, that's just yanks anybody out of this. She shouldn't be lasting this long.
Well, you know exactly why she's the one who lasts the longest and does the best.
Before that started, Yord said, she'll be fine, she's a Jedi. And I thought, that's a strange line. Shouldn't she have Padawan? She should be in a bit of trouble back there. And then they go to her. She's flying through the air, spinning around, 2 lightsabers, just going nuts.
Plus, he's watched multiple Jedi get hacked to the ground by this Sith
I
Lord.
know.
She'll be fine, she's a Jedi. What, the other cannon fodder that have gone up against this dude?
10 on 1 didn't have a chance, but the Padawan, she'll be fine.
She's a Jedi with training wheels, and they just decided abandoning her was a good idea.
Maybe they were secretly trying to get her killed because she's annoying as fuck.
Wouldn't be
oh yeah, you
surprised.
go in there, you're fine. I love how she tries to arrest May multiple times, and like instead of restraining her,
She's like harassing her.
yeah, she's like reading her rights and the list of charges against her. It's like, how about you get those cuffs on her, restrain her, and then just gloat a little bit. Like
she went all Starsky and Hutch, like trying to get the lines in as quickly as possible to look cool.
Yeah. Oh, so
and Snarky Jay, Starsky and Hutch was a show way, way, way before you were born.
I feel like I've heard it referenced.
You're the new generation. We're the last Jedi generation. You've got the Acolyte generation.
Veterans of this fucking bullshit.
The things
it's so funny because all the compliments the choreography is getting, I'm already seeing people rev it up the whole like, right, let's start going through it slowly. And it's like,
that's true. If you go through the actual lightsaber, I still think it's good. I would say this is the first time we've had good lightsaber choreography from Disney. It still has problems. It's not great, and there are definitely moments if you go through it where you sort of think, okay, well, why did he hit him instead of stabbing him? Or okay, that move doesn't make sense there. Or if you look at these two, why did the guy pull his lightsaber back instead of just thrusting it up into Kylo Ren boy? Like these kind of weird little things. But I still think overall it's good lightsaber choreography, especially compared with Ahsoka, which was dreadful. That was the worst lightsaber choreography.
Something that
you
I was
tell they
thinking
were
about,
working with actual fairly talented fighters.
They tried with this, yeah. The thing about it is I saw someone tweet saying this is the best choreography since the prequels, and a lot of people were like, that's crazy, no way, blah, blah. And then I was
That's
like,
actually true.
Well,
That's
wait
true.
a minute. Yeah, I was like, there's nothing impressive since the prequels. So
because I was thinking about this, and if you look at it, Kylo Ren had a really lazy brute force, ugly to look at,
he just
slow
hacked and
lightsaber
slashed at everything.
yeah, despite the fact that he was trained by two of the greatest, like, powerful members of both sides, he ended up like a caveman with his fucking sword.
This is a tricky one to assess, right? Because, like, I don't know about you guys. When I look at a lightsaber fight in a Star Wars movie, there's two sides to it. One is the choreography and just the technical skill on display. Two is the emotional investment. And like, what does this fight mean in terms of your investment in the characters? This is why
I don't think they worry about that second one too much.
No, they don't. They don't clearly. But like, this is why, for example, like I liked the fight between Kylo Ren and Finn. It wasn't very technically skilled, but you really felt the emotion of Finn like fighting with everything he had against a far superior.
The Finn one's better than the Rey one. I'll give you that.
Yeah, which and this is why I think like certain fights are not terribly technically impressive, but they've got a lot of resonance to them. Kind of like when Luke fights Vader for the last time. He's just wailing on him. It's just pure rage. So there's not a lot of technical skill there, but man, it's an incredible fight to watch because it means so much.
I think you're on point with the character aspect, the choreography aspect, but I would add like a third layer of the use of their abilities / environment, and that's why the Bespin battle between Luke and Vader to me is just like I could talk about it all day. How many different decisions they made to make that one so fucking detailed, layered, impressive, and how most you could I think at a first glance be like, this doesn't make any sense. Vader's like struggling, and you're like, nah, he's playing with him. It's great. Like he's enjoying fighting Luke because he's not good enough, and he keeps like making reference to how he's actually a little more impressive than he would have expected. But then the second Luke actually tags him, Vader's like, motherfucker, okay, your arm's coming off. It's like, you just, how fucking dare you?
It's amazing how many people miss all those cues. The Disney fans to this day still don't understand those fights. Still think that Vader was trying to kill Luke, which just blows my mind that they can watch those movies and miss it's the whole arc of the film.
But it's the same as the fight in Return of the Jedi. Like they're essentially two people that are trying to win the other person over to their point of view. Luke's trying to redeem Vader. Vader's trying to turn Luke to the dark side by provoking him. There's a lot more going on there beyond like two guys swinging laser swords at each other because they want to kill each other. Like that's just a medium for like the conflict between the two characters. That's interesting. Here, like it's just a straight up brawl, and so it relies entirely on your technical skill, like just showing people really visually impressive stuff. Because we don't care really about any of these characters.
That's what was
annoying. May
annoying.
versus Osha, maybe like because theoretically they're the core of this story. Again, they're pretty like uninteresting characters. But that
If
would
only
at
they
least be a
felt like
rivalry.
2 different people, then maybe it would be interesting.
That would help. That's what was annoying about May saying, a Jedi only pulls their lightsaber when they're about to kill. And it's like, that's not how we've seen lightsabers used the whole time. The most interesting parts are when they're fighting. They're not trying to kill each other, like Vader and Luke. So it was just a weird foreshadowing that how Disney see the lightsaber as just this sort of weapon of death.
Well, at least now we know there was just one missing line that Chimere, or whatever his name, didn't mention. It's MauLer Ren. He said you can't kill Jedi with a blade, laser. But see, what he was getting at was you can do it with a laser blade. Like, that's the key. You gotta put them together. Obviously, that's the trick.
That was the loophole.
The thing I talked about in my review, and I guess I didn't have the full context at the time, right? Like, when Smilo Ren headbutts a lightsaber and it just shorts out the blade. And so apparently people have made me very aware.
Yeah.
I read the comments.
There's a mystical bullshit material that will somehow short out a lightsaber blade if it hits it, right? I don't know if it's like really rare and hard to come by, and so that's why it doesn't get used more. But man, it feels like that would be a super useful thing to.
Yeah, why isn't everybody covered in it?
Dude,
I read about this. I was curious. I went on to Wikipedia, and apparently it's a very rare metal called cortosis, which is, for some reason, it's extremely hard to refine into sheets. It's very rare. It's very expensive. It's difficult to work, and it's vulnerable to laser fire or something. It overheats, and something like it's very unstable until it's refined, so it can't be refined in large quantities, something like that. There is a fairly solid explanation in terms of the EU canon about cortosis, which is why it's not more widespread. And
I
tell you, the people that know about those facts think the people that don't are fucking idiots, because the people telling me what a retard I was for not knowing anything about that was amazing.
Dude, it feels to me like a normie trap. It's so funny because in our episodes we've had Ryan Kindle along, who's the biggest Star Wars nerd I know, and so when it happened, all of us were like, "What the fuck was that?" He was like, I can explain this. And we were like, okay.
He probably reaches back to the 1,000 books behind him and pulls the exact book out where it was first mentioned and starts reading from it.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the utility of this stuff, right? Because Smilo Ren's got like the helmet that's made of this stuff, and I think he's got 2 bangles around his wrists. And so, like, if someone's swiping a lightsaber at him, he can just go like that and deflect it or short it out. But I thought
it's very Wonder Woman of him.
I was about to say, so he's Wonder Woman.
This is on your wrist, right? Imagine if you got it just like an inch wrong to either side, right? That's it. Your arm's gone. It's like that. That feels like a really, that's a desperation move right there. Like, that could go horribly wrong very easily. But it always works out for him just fine.
What really bothers me too is like those dumbass Jedi who, when they hit their lightsaber and it starts to short out, they just become like paused in time. They're like, nothing else I can do now. You're like, and bro, there's so many things you can do. You are a Jedi.
The scene of them both looking down like it's a torch that's not coming on, like hitting the button. And it's you've got the Force. Just keep going. Like,
there's this is the problem, right? When you establish a world where people can force push people with ease, right? And you've got all those kind of abilities, you don't ever need to punch them or do anything like that. You can just force push them into a fucking tree or off a cliff or something. It's like, that's it. You've won the fight. And so, but nobody ever thinks to do that. They'll do it once when they want a visually impressive scene of someone getting thrown through a door or something like that, which explodes like it's made of paper. And then they never use it again. And then they end up like fist fighting each other or wrestling with them or something. Like, why? Why are you doing that?
This is the problem with the helmet. Like, you've already got problems with the Force, when to use it, when to not, so it looks realistic when you're making these shows. Why introduce a helmet that lightsabers can't hit through? Like, then you're just introducing more problems. Like, the more they add to this, the harder it is to bloody show Jedi without it looking ridiculous.
It's the
also,
TLJ.
why did the helmet just break off? Like,
someone punched it.
Am I the only one that didn't get that? Like, it's taken 17 lightsaber hits because he keeps fucking headbutting it like an animal, and then it just like falls apart because Jackie or whatever her name is hits it once.
Because Jackie punches it because she, clearly she's a real brawler, and you can just tell by looking at her.
She
And
looks
she's
really
able-
buff.
Yeah, she's able to punch this helmet clean off his fucking head.
Yeah,
sure.
Why
Okay.
not? Why not? Yeah.
It withstands lightsabers, but not delicate 19-year-old girls, apparently.
I want a villain who's clad entirely in like Beskar and this bullshit material as well. Like, so it just deflects everything and like nothing can touch him. Like-
Yeah, full Beskar, and then a full layer of this on top, and then a full layer of
Yeah, sure.
fucking adamantium on top of that.
But it's like I was about to say, it's the Last Jedi problem, you know, where you've introduced cloaking devices somehow, and then you've got to have decloaking scans to overcome that problem. You know, you've got hyperdrive. Well, now we've got hyperdrive tracking, and then we get to the next movie. Now we have to have hyperdrive skimming to override hyperdrive tracking. It's just like a constant game of rock paper scissors where you're adding so much complexity onto it.
Oh,
It
there's
just
so many
gets
better
ridiculous.
solutions because you know, a lot of people tried to explain TLJ with saying there was a mole on board. This was never a plot line in the film, but it was fans trying to make sense of how insane everyone was in that movie. And it's funny because a mole on board would actually fix a lot of the plot issues. You wouldn't need hyperdrive tracking. You'd be like, they keep revealing our position to the enemy. You know,
That'd be
who's
so
doing
much
this?
easier, wouldn't it? And it wouldn't break the whole universe.
Well, and we watched Undiscovered Country, and the search for the mole on that ship is a particularly engaging storyline. Why couldn't you do that in Star Wars? That would be fun. You know,
They
who
did
could it
that.
be?
They did that in the first episode of BSG, which was a great episode. The fleet is trying to escape the robots, the Cylons. Every
Cylons, yeah.
44 minutes or 88 minutes, I can't remember. And they're trying to figure out how are they able to track us because we're doing these hyper jumps, and they eventually figure out they have a mole in the fleet. And once they get rid of the mole, then they're able to escape the Cylons. That was an amazing story. They could have done something similar in Last Jedi rather than, as MauLer says, just a redundant hyperspace tracking.
Well, Ryan Johnson would happily tell you that those criticisms are invalid, and his movie was superb. So,
yeah, still great, still great, a great movie to this day.
Still drinking copium several years later.
I did love.
Still gonna make that trilogy.
Yeah, we're waiting for that one, Ryan. I did love the lightsaber haircut as well.
Oh, wait, before you go to that, I'm desperate to share this with you because I think if all of you don't know about cortosis, that's what it is, right? There's no way to know about something else
of liver.
I'm sharing right now, Drinker. So this is from the recent coverage we had. I was Googling stuff when we found out about cortosis because I was just like, what the fuck is that? And I was looking at Lil Platoon fighting people about this too because he was on Twitter being like, why are they headbutting shit? And we got this little edit here. It's going to be like 2 minutes, but I think you guys will find this pretty funny as bonus information that you wouldn't know about the Star Wars universe.
That's everybody, but they won't.
No, thanks to Ryan, we are understanding cortosis. Wouldn't it be funny if I told you there was some kind of metallic compound and it resists lightsabers and it was just called phrik? Like if I just introduced that in the next episode, wouldn't that be funny?
I mean, why not?
The reason I say it, of course, is because that's how I feel about cortosis, but ultimately it has precedent. But turns out phrik does too.
You're joking.
The reason I'm aware of this because I've just been doing some browsing and I'm seeing Lil Platoon was complaining about the exact same thing that we would have been because he's not as aware of all canon. And someone said to him, and I thought it was a joke, but he's highlighted it's not a joke. Someone said, clearly you don't know anything about phrik. You don't know anything about
phrik.
Made up.
A major source of phrik was the Frikite mines of Warhammer 16, which would be combined with Tiberium. Shut up.
So they had entire mines of it. That obviously the Jedi would...
phrik.
So the Jedi would be running around and they'd have phrik armor.
Oh
It
man.
was also very expensive, and as a result, it saw limited use in warfare. Rags.
Get wrecked, right?
Oh, well, I
showed
guess
you.
they said it was very expensive, and yet somehow every Jedi's running around with a lightsaber.
It's got to be profitable to mine Frikite, which means someone's buying it.
Is it actually called frikite?
Yeah,
Frikite.
it's on the thing you sent us.
You think I
Frikite
read past
mine.
the first fucking sentence. I'm already out. It's such a like, you gotta fucking be kidding me.
Hold on a more extreme scale, at one point in the Galactic Civil War, a container of phrik was able to stay intact when it was on the surface of Alderaan during its destruction.
Yeah, that's how good it is.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's that good.
You blow up
You don't
Alderaan,
need-
there's just this
don't-
little case of phrik floating.
Well, that's why.
I love that you animated that as well.
It's
That sounds like just complete bullshit. Like it's hard to believe.
It's
that's
completely made up, but it's
Just
real.
because it's in the EU doesn't mean it's a good idea. Like, not everything in the EU needs to be taken as that's a good idea because it's in the EU. It's like, no, some of it's good, some of it's bad. Let's just leave lightsabers alone as being able to cut through anything. That's way easier. Doesn't create any lower plot holes, and that'll be fine. Like,
I like how they
could have dragged out of the EU. They dragged that out.
I don't
If
know.
they
It's such
say
a weird
something's
choice 'cause
expensive-
they decanonized it, the EU, and they chose to pick out random bits of bullshit like this. Like, oh yeah, we're
It's
keeping
how they're
that.
grasping at straws to justify their own nonsense. Like they don't pick anything that's good or that we've been asking for. It all just turns to shit.
But they come up with phrik, whatever it is, and then they say to get out of using it, it's expensive. I can see the Empire looking through their books and going, "Who the fuck bought the phrik? Like, we can't afford that." Like,
we can
they're not
afford to
just
convert
gonna go take
entire
it.
planets into like orbital death stations, but yeah, we can't afford a bit of metal. That's too much.
For the record, though, Beskar. It's like, yeah, I can believe that. Cortosis. You're like, yeah. Phrik. You're like, you made that one up. That's not real. You wouldn't call it phrik. No one would call it phrik. What about phrik with a PH? You're like, oh no, I believe that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I love this one that they like. Someone created this in response to Little Platoon, and I just thought it was perfect for the haircut. It's so good. That
It's like
the
like
little
these lesbians
details.
howling at the moon. It's like it's fine to have this woman in charge, this lesbian activist. It's fine. Haircutting scene, lesbians howling at the moon. It's like I don't know if she was the right choice. I could be wrong.
I just thought, like, you know what the most hackneyed thing you can ever do with twins in a show is like have them impersonate each other. Like, oh, this one's gonna pretend to be the other one, and no one's gonna know the difference, even though they're acting like a completely different person, and they don't know things that they absolutely should. Yeah, they're just doing it in this show.
Do you know what's kind of
even
bizarre?
worse, they're doing it in a universe where the Jedi can sense your thoughts, or they can at least sense your emotions and stuff. So when she approaches Squid Game guy at the end of that episode, and she's like, "Oh, glad I found you, and I'm glad you're okay. Let's go."
And she was acting so suspicious about it too, because the audience is too dumb to notice subtlety, so Disney had to bash us over the head with it. Like it's so obviously not her. How about like a quick forehead check? Maybe she's got a tattoo.
It's such a weird
noggin.
timing too, like in this part of the show to start doing it. If they'd started the series where they didn't even know she was alive and all her training was about controlling her thoughts so they couldn't read it was the wrong twin or something, then that could be interesting. But they wait till now and they're completely different people and they've met both of them.
Yeah.
And so like obviously they should be able to pick up on who's who. And now they're going to do it. It's just
It'll
so
be
odd.
it'll be the arm tattoo. They set it up in episode 1 or 2, I think 2.
Yeah.
It'll be that, and he'll see that she doesn't have a tattoo, and then he'll be like, "Uh-oh," even though you should be
Oh
able to.
man, do
sense
you know
it,
what? Do you know what'd be great if like Master Saul
Saul.
was like secretly having an affair with Osha, and then May impersonates Osha, and she's in her room, and then like Saul comes in and starts feeling her up and everything, and she has to go along with it.
Well, I mean, she
That-
did spend a really long time working for Weinstein, so that seems like the kind of plot she would be very familiar with.
She would get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that fucking giant gerbil thing is going to figure it out clearly.
Yeah, he'll do it too. But
He
the go
sniffed it out.
address, there's an elephant in the room, Drinker, especially considering the title of this stream. You just said it's the most hackneyed thing you could do with two twins to have one person date the other.
Game of Thrones.
Dot.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't end well either.
No,
that's a minor subplot in a much bigger story.
But
yeah,
I mean, I assume you would say it's just like there's more reason for it being retarded in the Acolyte. They do more work in Hot D to make it functional.
Yes.
Also, has anyone here ever smelt burnt hair?
Yes.
That's an interesting question.
I only
was
joked
actually
I
I
actually have.
know the smell of.
It was one of the first things I
have,
thought when she would have turned
and
up. She
it's,
would smell
Despot,
pretty
maybe
rough.
just slow down a bit in the sack.
if you've ever smelt burnt hair, I've smelt it once at a party, right? If you've ever
What kind of
smelled
parties
burnt
do you
hair,
go to?
this was a long time ago.
Burning
Was it
hair.
your hair? Does that explain why things are the way they are now?
But
It's on his chin.
it's shockingly pungent. Like once you know the smell, but like it never ever goes away. Like the idea that she'd be able to cut her hair, it would stink for hours afterward.
Yeah.
Not to
I think
mention,
as
hasn't
well-
she also been like trekking through this like forest? Wouldn't she smell different than her sister? Like just slightly more. I don't understand. This is just.
They're trying to
all
imply
this-
the gerbil has picked up the difference in scent, but I can't get over her whole aura would be completely different. Soul would notice immediately. It's bullshit. They're full of shit on this one.
Yeah, you wouldn't even need force power to recognize this. I mean, these two people have lived separately their entire life. To be perfectly honest, they would have different accents. Like none of it makes
Yeah.
sense because they were separated before they were teenagers. So one of them goes off to live with the Jedi on Coruscant. This is a very uppity, a high class area where with all the right people and the Jedi Council, she'd have a nice accent. And then her sister gets raised by some random and God knows where. She'd have a totally different accent. And their body language would be different, their behavior, their vibe. You wouldn't need to be a Jedi to notice this.
Mm-hmm.
May should swear all the time, and then all of a sudden Osh like, for fuck's sake. And Soul's like, what's going on here?
I'm struggling to wrap my head as well around May's thought process on this one. So she knocks her sister out by throwing her off a cliff, and just assumes that's fine. It doesn't cause major brain damage or anything. Strips her of her clothes and then runs away. It leaves her unconscious on a hostile planet with horrifying wildlife that could kill and eat people at a moment's notice, and just assumes that she's going to be fine.
And bear in mind,
And
she could wake up any moment.
I mean, she could, but then she might not.
Well, my point is that
nothing to
it
say
doesn't
that
work
Smile
either
will
way. If she wakes up early, she can go and shout for Soul, and he'll be like, "Wait, what the fuck?" But if she wakes up late, she might just die. So
She could get dragged away by moths because that's a thing that can happen now.
That was the thing that took down our villain, which was fucking hilarious as well.
10 Jedis couldn't do it,
I've
but
got this thing on my
slugs-
back. I can't get it off.
Oh, Trigger, they were so proud of themselves for that one. We set it up. Episode 4, we set it up. It was in the previously on. We set it up. It's like, yes, you
we did set up and pay off. Look at us.
Look how we did it.
They really thought they did something with that one.
May's flip-flopping is the weirdest thing about this show. I think her just constantly changing which side she's on or how she feels about her sister. From when they were kids, when she said she was going to kill her for leaving, and even now it's like I'm still not sure if she's going to kill her or not.
I feel like everyone's flopping, by the way. Osha being like, you can't execute him. That's horrible. We can feed him to moths, though. That's chill. Okay. Yeah. Personally, I prefer to get my head chopped off by a lightsaber than be fed to giant moths. That's not the preferable way to go. But she decided that was the right thing to do. I didn't understand what was happening in that scene at all.
Or
again,
how
they've got
how
him-
about you just like use the lightsaber and chop his hands off or something?
Yeah.
Like then he's not a threat to you anymore, but he's not dead. So it's like, okay, fine, we can now take him back and like interrogate him and stuff. Okay, let's do that. No, that's too smart.
There's also, it's so irresponsible because as far as Saul is concerned, this guy is still an existential threat to everyone in the vicinity. So he's morally obligated to kill this Sith who, even unarmed, like he said, the Jedi do not kill the unarmed. He has the Force. The Force is a weapon. He can push people and strangle them and things. And God knows what else, because he's a Sith. That's a weapon. He's just murdered a bunch of people. Kill
the
him.
space lesbian criticism that the Jedi
so
see the Force as a
ridiculous.
weapon. So it's like, yeah, and he just killed Yord without a weapon, quote unquote. So it's like, you got to deal with him.
And right in front of him. Like, it's not even like he's not sure what's just happened and he's walked into the scene. He watched everyone die.
It's like the only good thing about the show was this lightsaber choreography on a very superficial level, right? As we're not emotionally invested in it, but it at least looks visually entertaining. And Jesus Christ, trust Leslie Headland to take, who are clearly talented choreographers and a fairly athletic cast, and even Jung Jae, he was doing quite well with the fight choreography, despite the fact that he's a middle-aged man. And then the young guy who's playing Kylo Rent Boy, he was really good. He was very athletic, very fast. One good thing about the show, and it's just surrounded by shite. that all of the non-lightsaber. Do you know the reason? The reason this was the best episode of the show so far is because it has the least dialogue and the least plot. Because as soon as people start talking and as soon as the plot starts to develop, it's just awful.
Actually,
I mean, I think it
as they
makes
start
perfect
talking.
sense because they said that they had somebody, I think, who was like proud to have never seen the originals at all. Like, oh, I've never seen Star Wars, and that's why we hired them. Yeah, that much is fucking obvious. I don't think anybody in that writer's room has seen Star Wars.
The other
Probably
thing that
not.
helped the lightsaber action in this is the biggest problem they had with Rey, with Daisy, is that they were so keen to do those long shots like in the films, and she just cannot swing a lightsaber to save herself, or a stick by the looks of it.
You need
And
an
the-
Go ahead,
and
sorry,
also
go ahead.
good editing. Like they edited around these people, and like you had in Last Jedi that long shot, and even when they're fighting on the crashed Death Star in Rise of Skywalker, these long shots of them swinging these heavy baseball bats over and over.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
so they had in their head, we want these long shots, but we haven't got an actress that can actually do anything in those long shots, and they just went, fuck it, we're just doing it anyway. At least
It was
with
like-
this.
Worst of both worlds, because they had that with her, and then their direction did seem to be, you are angry, you're holding a baseball bat, go. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
whoa,
I
what
think at least
is
with
this?
like the guy from Squid Game, he clearly has some technical skill, both at lightsaber fighting and like the hand-to-hand stuff. So
He can pull off
move
convincing
pretty
the audience to think of the movements, kind of like Trinity was trying to pull it off, but I still, there are other elements that kind of yank me out. One of the things I really want to mention, because it kind of regards what Despot was talking about there, like the lack of lines means there's less things for them to fuck up on with character, but still, I think this one probably did the most damage to Soul out of all episodes. He watched his Padawan die, and then he watched Yord die. There were like these about 8-second sequences for both of them where Soul could have done anything, and he just watched.
Yeah.
He's
It's
the
that
most
classic thing of
powerful
like
out
a
of all the
dramatic.
Jedi.
Yeah, it's like that a dramatic moment happens, and all the other characters in the vicinity have to be just put on
They're
pause.
frozen. They can't
so
do
this
anything.
can happen, yeah.
And like they show it, because some people speculate like, oh, maybe he can't use the Force on Smiler Ren because he's too powerful. It's like, no, we watch him in the episode pull him back with the Force when he's about to kill May, the person who killed Indara, killed a lot of people as far as they know. But when it comes to his own Padawan, when it comes to the Jedi Knight that just saved May, he can't do anything. I was like, that's really fucked up. Like all it does is pan back to him, and he's like, oh my goodness, my beloveds are dead. Oh no. If only I had like the telekinesis or something, that would have done it.
They really wanted to fight against everyone laughing, people surviving
Also, can I
lightsaber
point-
wounds by hitting her 3 times through the chest.
Can
But
I
she could
point
still survive.
Can I point to the giant Wookiee in the room? Like because episode 4 was the worst episode. I know a lot of people say, "Oh wow, Snarky Jay, did you just hit 100K?"
You have
I
hit
haven't
100.
I haven't checked.
Have it,
Like,
check. Go ahead and check.
Chat keeps saying
Congratulations.
100, so congratulations.
If we did that, I'm gonna just go scream off cam for a minute. Oh yeah, we did! Yay! All right.
Congratulations.
That's it.
Well
That's
done.
it for me. I'm not gonna be obnoxious about it. I'll be sitting here vibrating quietly.
Now you can say like, I'm kind of a big deal around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Put that on a t-shirt.
Listen, if you got places to be, want a big timers, that's fine. Many
Please.
of people do.
Sorry, Despot, on you go.
No, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh, no, yeah, the Wookiee. So basically, episode 4 was the worst. Some people say it was episode 3. It was episode 4 because it was so fucking boring. But do you know what would have been really cool? What episode 5 could have used in terms of just sheer spectacle? Like
A
the
Wookiee?
Wookiee in the previous episode, nobody can find him. And then in episode 5, it turns out he was off hunting, but he could sense the battle going on, so he quickly ran back. And then, Smiler Ren's going nuts. He's killing everybody. And then the Wookiee shows up, and the Wookiee's sort of standing there and lights up his lightsaber, and it's like, oh fuck yeah, we're gonna get a Wookiee versus Smiler Ren lightsaber battle. That would have been really cool.
How
That would
fucking
be
cool would
that
it
would
be?
on, like
that
a
they, like-
Thanos versus the Hulk kind of thing, like full on
I know,
rage.
they
The opportunity is
that
through
up
the
so
fucking roof,
badly.
right? Clash, 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 and maybe even the Wookiee's kind of losing on that aspect. But there's a point where both sabers like knocked out of their hands, and then he just grabs him with 2 hands and headbutts him super hard. Smiler Red's like fucking hell, and the Wookiee's like tossing him into a tree. Like that shit would have been awesome, but oh well. As they said, I don't know how many of you know, but they stated that they wasn't in the budget to use the Wookiee. It was beyond their
so
ability.
$180 million.
Where did the $180 million go?
But
Did it
that's
go
one
to
of those.
painting
Rookie
Leslie
house, and
Headland's
there he
wife
is,
green?
just like in a chair with a stupid lightsaber cut across him.
It's
But again, that's
pathetic.
one of those things that should have just is obvious. Like we talk about it now, we're excited just imagining what it would have looked like. And they've got the sets built, they've got the guy in the suit, they've got the cameras. Like you're so close to doing it, then they go, okay, so just put the Wookiee in the chair, he's dead. You'd be like standing there going, is this the same person that named Phrik? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's just it seems so obvious to make this enjoyable, and they just fight against it the whole time.
Yeah, it's like I think Despot, you described it as like anti-geniuses. That's what it is. It's like you take the most logical route towards making people happy and entertaining your customers, and then just do the exact opposite. It's the Zack Snyder approach. It's amazing.
Oh my god.
There was one super chat here I did like. John Gates says, Chris Stuckman rewriting this show. Tell that to Yord Snap Neck.
Damn.
Also, I will love this show if Disney goes full troll and everyone gets up with only minor burns, including the decapitated ones, and Saul throws May to a slave Leia bikini.
People are half expecting that Jackie will be at a hospital next episode. I find that hilarious.
I've
Please
seen the
do it.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
No way. She
Brilliant.
got stabbed through the spine. If that happens, I'm actually gonna go play in traffic.
We've all
Just know
been
that.
there.
If they
I
bring her
feel-
back, I'm running into traffic.
You know what it is, though?
Funny
I
thing,
feel like they had to have her get stabbed 3 times just so you know she was actually dead. It's like
Yep.
one's not enough in Star Wars now. You have to do it like multiple times.
Oh,
Like,
I know what's going to happen.
Somehow
What's gonna
Jackie
happen is
returned.
Jackie is going to come back in the next episode, and the first line she's going to say is something like, well, it's just a good thing my species has all our internal organs in our legs.
I just have to say as well, you know that moment where she decides to take on May, and it's like, if you're a Jedi with force powers, you can force push people. You've got a lightsaber where you can quite literally disarm people with it. What is your means of ambushing someone? I just love how she goes in and fucking missile kicks her with both legs and then lands on the ground next to her. Like, it's like straight out of fucking Star Trek 1960s, you know, like when Shatner would attack an alien just by missile kicking it.
But all the martial arts
way
stuff,
of taking on someone ever.
when they go into the martial arts stuff, it's like no matter how good this looks, it makes no sense if you've got the Force or you've got lightsabers or you're a Jedi. Like if you're going into hand-to-hand punching each other, you've forgotten, you know, a very important part of being a Jedi, and that's that you've got the Force. And it always seems very strange to me.
Well, we're living in a world now in Star Wars where you can use the Force to deflect or push back a lightsaber beam. You know, that's how powerful it is. And so when you've got that, you don't even need any kind of weapons anymore. You can force push people, you can force deflect lightsabers, you can just do anything you want. What's the point in doing anything else? What's the point in having physical weapons? You don't need them anymore. This is how you write yourself into a corner because you make everyone too powerful. It's just like power creep.
Yeah, for me, the thing that broke the Force more than anything else that Disney have done was probably Ahsoka, when Sabine goes from not even being able to move a fucking cup to being able to throw a guy from a platform onto a Star Destroyer. And that took a couple of days. And that for me, yeah, that just broke the Force. And she's not even Force sensitive. But I know the Force is already broken.
She really wanted to do it, though, Despot. So that's all she needed.
Dude, Sabine that got all the Star Wars collectibles, right? Like the Beskar armor and the Mandalorian history. Also Force sensitive, also a prodigy. Didn't she invent some kind of incredible weapon as well at a super young age? When more information I got on her, I was like, she's just another Ahsoka from a Dave Filoni's little toys that have to like dominate every last scene they're in. And now they're together. Bring on Ahsoka season 2. That's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's so funny how that show was it was like a non-show. You know, it was like a thing that we made fun of when it was out, and as soon as it was over, nobody talked about it anymore. It was just gone, consigned to the ash heap of history. And I feel like it's the same with pretty much every Disney show that they bring out, or at least every Disney Star Wars show.
You know, the only one that has defied that is Andor. It's the only one that people still talk about and seems to be slowly but surely developing something of a cult following.
Yeah.
But everything else has just disappeared from the cultural landscape.
And that's the show they should be rushing back because it's the actual show people like, and they're not.
It's gonna be crazy, dude. If season 2 is good for Andor, and that's it, that's the end, and then Gilroy is not interested in doing more Star Wars or something, it's gonna be such a like, oh well, bye. we'll just hang out with Filoni, I guess. That'll be great.
I mean, I guess because we've asked this kind of each of our guests that have been on. So from your point of view, Snarky Jay, like, is there anything that can help Star Wars? Is there anything that you would like to see get done, or is there any creative that could come on board that could actually fix this absolute mess?
Oh man. I used to think that was George Lucas, and then I have come to the conclusion that the more I hear him defending Bob Iger and all these other morons, he's just as lost as they are. To be honest, I think there just has to be a complete overhaul. I think the only thing that's ever going to fix Star Wars is if Disney sells, and they won't, so they're just going to put the franchise into the ground. Like, obviously, they're checking boxes over hiring actual talent, and checking boxes and getting money from, DEI and ESG initiatives over actually making anything of quality. So the longer they do that, they're never going to produce anything of, like, worth watching,
Yeah. No, it seems to be like the Acolyte, I guess, is the ultimate expression of that. And it might be partly why people are enjoying the failure of it and enjoying a bit of Schadenfreude with it, because it's the perfect example. And everyone knew it was going to be bad, but I don't think everyone expected it to be quite so bad and to fail this hard. But to have a show where they straight up say, it's made by a feminist, lesbian, gender fluid activist, or whatever she describes herself as, and that's all going to be reflected in the storylines. It's all going to be very female centric. You're essentially giving us a laundry list of all the things that have caused so many problems within Star Wars since Disney took it over, and now it's all condensed together into one show. Of course, people were going to expect it to fail, and it has done in spectacular fashion. And I just don't know if they can ever let go of that. I don't know if they could ever say, hey, we're just going to do a Star Wars show that's just entertainment. We're not trying to check any boxes. We're not trying to comment on the state of the world today. We're not trying to score any brownie points politically. We're just going to tell a good story.
And they've just been like so petty about it too, because it's like, when the Book of Boba Fett came out, I felt personally offended. Like, there was nothing in that series that did not make me feel like I was personally attacked. But at least on Disney's end, they were like, isn't this, though, like what you wanted out of Boba Fett? With The Acolyte, they literally put out a show that they knew we weren't going to like. And they were like, hey, if you don't like this, it's because you fucking suck and you should die. I'm like, I'm sorry. Now you're genuinely poking the bear, and now I'm gonna enjoy trashing your show every Wednesday. Like, you had this shit coming.
When Solo lost money and like they panicked and cancelled all the movies and didn't know what to do, you think they would have headed in a different direction? But it's like they were looking at two roads, and one had fire and brimstone, and one was all sunny and shiny. They went, we'll go down the fire and brimstone one. That seems to be the way out of here.
They just doubled down.
Worse. It's like, this one's the craziest one with the craziest person making it. And you think, maybe if this happened years ago and then they learned from it, but they just push it on. It's quite amazing to watch.
They can't let it go, I think. Because I guess they're that invested in this new vision for Star Wars. I don't know if they're...
Bit of sunk cost.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess their thought process is like, if we force it hard enough and for long enough, eventually people will just come to accept it through sheer resignation. Or... the old fans who are putting up a resistance to this will fade away, and we'll have new fans who will come in, kind of like that Doctor Who approach, which has worked great.
We've talked about like methodology of how to fix stuff like this, even though it's a complete pipe dream, would never happen. But the whole clean house, the decanonization, the apology to fans, things that'll never, ever, ever happen. But another thing that would never happen that they should totally do is when you release a thing and a bunch of fans all meme on how you fucked up Fire in Space or something, one of the best responses you could possibly have is being like, whoops, yeah, we got that wrong. I mean, hopefully, it doesn't ruin too much, but yeah, we were rushing, and I think we missed that detail. Sorry about that. That we'll do better. Like and try and join in on it, lean in on it. But no, it'll always be hyper defensive, and then they'll somehow be like, complaining about Fire in Space, racist.
I mean, wait, what? That's actually true. That's actually true. They said something to the effect of, you're using Fires in Space as a facade just to behind which to hide your racism, which is your real problem with the show. I saw that argument.
I mean, yeah, like for me and for Gary, we are apparently responsible for tanking the Acolyte. We stirred up so much hatred towards it that we destroyed this show.
Have Lucasfilm fired you yet?
Well, and for that, I don't apologize because they absolutely deserved it. But also, if you get to the point where people reviewing it on YouTube becomes more entertaining than the actual property itself, you've created a problem for yourself. And it's not because of people like me or Gary or Star Wars Theory or anyone else here. It's because you made a shit product that people took great delight in deconstructing. And that's on you as a creative force.
That script they've run with for the last 10 years of blaming the audience, blaming reviewers, and is just, again, you think the money men, you think someone losing money would say, you've got to stop doing that. Like, even if they hate the show, you've got to just come out and go, well, it's a different show. Maybe you'll like the next one. But the attack of the audience and reviewers, just, you think at some stage the money's going to start talking again, but I don't know.
Well, it's the equivalent as well. In terms of like antagonizing your fan base, it's like a comedian berating his audience for not laughing at his shit jokes. What do you think? Do you think they're then going to start laughing at you because they're guilted into it? Of course they're not. Once you've established that adversarial relationship with your fan base, that's it. You ain't coming back from that.
Joe Coy did that at the Golden Globes, and recently Netflix released a trailer for his new special, and all of the comments were like, "Oh, that's the dickhead from the Golden Globes." And that's a really good microcosm of what Disney are doing, because when you do that, when you sort of say, yo, why aren't you laughing at my jokes? Or my jokes, the funny jokes, it's the writer jokes that suck. When you sort of attack the audience like that, that's kind of becomes your legacy and that's your brand. Yeah. And people will hate you for it.
And that's review bombing. They love saying it's getting review bombed. You created this. You created all the people that are review bombing, even if it's all fake or whatever they want to say, and it's people going on there and they haven't even watched the show. Yeah, but that's because of the show you're making. Whatever the reason is, you have created this. You haven't created something people love or like or enjoy. You've created something people want to make fun of and laugh at. So again, just blaming the audience and the reaction to their own products. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, they still have plenty of shills on Twitter that have literally made accounts on Rotten Tomatoes to give them positive reviews, but that's not a review bomb because it's positive.
Yeah,
get the hell out of here. It's only a problem when we do it.
That's the big difference, I think, that just is undeniable. The horde of people, however big it is, looking at 5 probably people who praise the thing, it's always the fucking wow, look at the colors. Wow, wasn't that episode fun? Wow, and it's just do you have anything? Talk about the characters.
I just want to turn my brain off and have fun.
Talk about
shut up.
Or it'll be as a queer, bisexual, black, quadriplegic lesbian or something. I feel represented by this show. Well, great, but how does that relate to the quality of the writing or the storytelling in any way? It doesn't, but it's
and it's also shallow. It's just one still from the show, and it's I was shaking, or I'll never get over this, or peak Star Wars. It's they got about 5 different things they say.
Yeah,
and it's like you're saying, there's nothing.
This is cinema right here.
There's no analysis. It's just surface level. It's always just oh, I love it, and then people being oh my god, it was actually Chimera the whole time, and it's tell me why that's meaningful. Tell me why it matters that he is Milo Red. Why does it matter at all? There's nothing.
The one that I've seen a lot in terms of the positive reviews is the appeal to mediocrity. So they'll write things like, this show's not that bad, or, okay, so it's not exactly The Godfather, but it's a decent show. It's kind of fun. And that's the best they can do, just appeal to mediocrity. It's not the worst thing in the world, so screw all the haters. I'm going to enjoy it. And by the way, this show is not even close to mediocre. It's fucking awful.
No,
it is shockingly bad. It's the worst
thing
Disney Star Wars have ever done.
Shot, but...
although compare it to the worst thing in the prequels. Well, what about this in the prequels? That ain't a good reference.
This show makes the Christmas special look good, and I mean that literally.
Well, yeah, it did that on Rotten Tomatoes. But I was going to say, an adjacent strategy to the whole, use mediocre. It's not even that. But they'll also try and drag down all the shit that this was built upon. It's Empire isn't actually as good as you think. Why are we bothering? What's the fucking point?
Do you remember how a stormtrooper bonked his head on a fucking bulkhead in A New Hope?
No, it's like
And
George
Empire-
Lucas wasn't that good. He
trained
didn't
for
even
that
direct
long.
Empire. Like, just crazy.
And people don't even realize just how good Empire is. That movie
fucking
is
great.
actually better. It's even better than most people realize. When you go into like the symbolism and the visual depth of it and the layering, it's a perfect movie.
You start to learn that with a lot of these people that love the Acolyte for the surface level stuff. They loved the OT for the same reason. They were like, I love the colors in the OT. And you're like, oh, dude, I didn't realize we love it for different reasons. Like the colors are real nice. I agree, but like there's more than that there.
And that is a shock because you grow up thinking that everyone watched it the same way, and we all love it. And why, like you were saying earlier, like the fight between Vader and Luke in Empire, and like why that is, you know, the greatest moment of Star Wars to a lot of people, myself included. And then you hear these people the way they talk about it, it's like, oh, you didn't watch the same film I watched. You were just having a completely different experience. So it always shocks me just how different people can watch the same film, and not in a good way. They're just that surface level way.
Well, and how they just want to drag everything into the sludge, the mire of everything is shit anyway. Just enjoy it. It's like, oh, I don't like that world.
The scene with the Padawan spinning the sticks a couple of episodes back, and people have been calling that out because she's flying around, and people saying, well, we saw Luke train and then take on Vader. It's like Luke was like years into it, climbing through a jungle with Yoda, teaching him, you know, he wasn't spinning a broomstick around, and then Vader kicked his ass anyway, and he wasn't even trying.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, these comparisons they make are just insane.
I think you said it yourself, MauLer, and you had a tweet about this go quite viral, where you said like nobody hates Star Wars more than Disney Star Wars fans. And I think that was perfectly true. It's just like the perfect encapsulation of the problem right there. They hate everything that this franchise used to be, and they want to replace it with their idea of what.
Yeah, move over, old man. It's like,
wow. Essentially, yeah. And it's like, I would be happy for them to do that if what they were replacing it with was actually good. You know,
but that's the thing. If it were actually good, it wouldn't need to replace it. It would work with it. It would build with it. It would respect.
Yeah, we just follow it up.
Yeah,
because
they love to say too, you know, you all hated the prequels when they came out, you know, which isn't really true. But even that was like people had fun with the prequels, like the bits that were stupid. People had fun with, like there wasn't this, oh well, in the OT this happened, and you know George Lucas is an idiot. Like it was more just the fun of how crazy it got.
I think because I remember this, I'm old enough to have gone to the cinema back when the prequels came out, and it was the prevailing feeling was one of mild disappointment of like, it's not as good as the originals, but you know, it's still Star Wars, so fine, we can just enjoy it for what it is. That was the mood back then. It wasn't like, oh my god, this has destroyed my childhood or any of that nonsense.
Well,
that was my childhood. I went to see the Phantom Menace 5 times in the cinema.
Oh, I was going to say, Revenge of the Sith was a fucking event when I was growing up. That was a big deal. I watched the trailer for it a bazillion times. I was so ready. Order 66 was like a, you know, that was a thing. And the thing is, that's what it did that the Disney Star Wars can't claim. The prequels had its own fan base being generated, a new set of children. Even if they were fans of the OT as well, like this whole line of people who, a lot of the people who were like OT fans were like, yeah, you know, like I think Gary is on record as saying he kind of hates the prequels, which I don't blame him. Like plenty of people do. But even he recognizes like what Disney have done isn't generating fans. It's just bleeding them. They're bleeding fans constantly from this whole franchise.
And you'll see that all the time. People saying, oh, well, this is for kids. You're not a kid anymore. I don't know one kid that's watching this stuff, especially the Acolyte.
No.
Like, and you watch, you think, what's in this for kids? The Basil running around, maybe, but like kids don't give a shit about this show.
So the Despot, you've shared this with us here.
Yeah, because this is the data on this. Kids really aren't watching Star Wars because it says here Gen Z % of streaming time spent on each service. Only 5% of Gen Z have a Disney Plus account, and of that 5%, how many are watching Star Wars?
This was so. Sorry to interrupt. This is exactly what everyone said was going to happen. Everyone would try and carve out their own space, and then it would just be a matter of time before they realize you can't. One of them is going to dominate and crush the rest. At least you'll be left with like 3 or 4 significant ones.
Yeah. Well, it's like the crazy like period where the internet was growing in the late 90s, early 2000s, where nobody knew what the default like social media platform or the default search engine was going to be. Everyone's scrambling to be that top dog.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the same thing with streaming. Like everyone's thinking that they can do it. You invest huge amounts of money, try to get the most content, the most compelling services, and then try and like corner the market. And yeah, Disney has failed massively. That is brutal. 5% of the market.
It's far worse than most people realize. They've completely failed to connect with a young audience, because Disney do have a good catalog, but it's not their catalog. It's movies and shows produced by a previous generation. Whereas Netflix are producing good new stuff. Like, what do kids love? They love Stranger Things and shows like that. And those are all the good new shows. It's always the best new shows come from Netflix. Like this year, it was actually Shogun that came from FX. But last year it was One Piece, and then they also had Stranger Things season 4. Baby Reindeer was pretty good too. But they've got good new stuff. Yeah, and The Gentleman. They create good new shows. They create some absolute shite as well, like that Jennifer Lopez movie. Can't even remember what it was called.
Atlas.
Atlas. But I mean, they do create new things that kids want to watch. Whereas, what the fuck? Why would kids go to Disney Plus? What new good shows are there on Disney Plus?
Yeah, because I would probably argue like the prequels, the Star Wars prequels opened up Star Wars to the next generation and got a lot of kids into it that perhaps hadn't been before. Because, Star Wars when I was growing up was seen as like our parents' generation's thing. It was something from the 70s, very early 80s, like before we were born. But like the prequels really opened it up to like a kid generation. And I would argue now, like they've failed to capitalize on the next generation now with what Star Wars is. And it's like the only audience you have available are older people who are in like their 30s and 40s and 50s now, like who still kind of remember the original stuff.
I think they thought that they were going to have a way bigger deal than they have. And that's why Grogu is still in The Mandalorian and is now filling landfills with unsold merchandise because nobody gives a shit about it anymore. Like, I think they thought, we're going to reel the kids back in. And then they just got Blockhead Headland to make garbage. And it's like Steve Buscemi with the skateboard. How do you do, fellow kids? Like, Disney doesn't get anybody at this point.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of the audience they bought. They didn't bring in a new one with all their new stuff. And they've started to, on an almost unprecedented level, build an anti-fandom.
Yeah, you talked about this before, and I think you're exactly right, where it's become almost like a popular thing now to hate on this stuff. And you can see it. Like, you can see it in the amount of traction that our various reviews of the Acolyte get, or, even just things like what we're doing now, like the open bar or Friday Night Tights when they talk about the Acolyte. The amount of attention it gets now is crazy because people are actively engaged against this stuff. And when you get to that stage, when people are actively making the time to hate your product, you're fucked as a company. You're fucked as a creative endeavor because everyone wants to hate it.
Well, so have you seen like something Tony Gilroy said about beginning to work on Andor was part of what interested him was whatever story he tells, he knows there will be a built-in set of eyes on it in the first place. This is not like building something from scratch. You'll at the very least have people who are going to give it a shot because it's Star Wars. Said that before starting on Andor, right? That was a while ago. I'm now at the point where I'm starting to wonder if you're better off starting from scratch than being a part of this IP. Because
I would say so.
It's fucking tainted
by now.
Yeah.
As an actor, for example, like I would tell any up-and-coming actor not to take part in a Star Wars project because it might seem theoretically that it's going to help your career, like you're going to get exposure to a big audience, you're going to be part of a big mainstream production with loads of money behind you. Don't do it because people actively want to dislike this stuff now. It's like with Squid Game guy, everyone liked him after being in Squid Game. He seems like a good actor, he's likable. He obviously went to a lot of effort with this. He learned fucking English so that he could do this role. But it's not going to help his career because everyone hates the Acolyte.
No, this
He's
can't
smart.
help
He
his
can
career
just
at
go
all.
home and keep making Squid Game and forget it ever happened. It's like when they were all making ads in Japan and that during the 80s, Schwarzenegger and all them would just go there, make ads, Harrison Ford, and then come back home again and never speak of it. So like he can just leave and not think about it ever again.
Yeah, it's a paycheck. But
To me, it almost feels like a
for-
trap, though, just like Marvel, where a lot of actors aren't as aware of all the stuff that we talk about on a daily basis. They do their acting, they have their own culture and bubble and family that they take care of in whatever way that they don't get involved in all this. So they're like, oh, a role to be in Star Wars? Yeah, I've always loved those movies. That sounds like a lot of fun. The one I brought up, I think, on the last open bar, but Ray Winston going into a Marvel movie. It's like, oh, yeah, this will be fun. Then he said it was like miserable. and there was like no room to.
Doesn't everybody say that about Marvel at this point?
Yeah, and this is what I'm getting at. Like with
what was
both
the problem?
processes,
What was Ray Winston's problem? Why
he
was
wanted he wanted to improvise in the sense of like behavior for Dreykov, but they were like, no, play it straight, play it boring, and it's just like, okay. It's Ray Winston, the guy.
Don't tell that to Ray Winston.
Like let him be fucking, a gangster boss. Let him, and he's Russian. Oh, could you imagine how funny it could have been if you let him lose? But yeah, Dreykov was crap. If
you're gonna hire Ray Winston, let him be Ray Winston, or don't hire him.
Yeah. Well, imagine like how much of an intimidating antagonist he could have been if he was allowed to go full Ray Winston.
Exactly.
Great fun with that. Someone who would really challenge Black Widow. Instead, you just got this absolute fucking pussy. He's useless at everything.
It was going to be tough for him no matter what, because the lines they were feeding him was stuff like, the problem with the world is women.
Hold on. I mean, is he wrong, MauLer, though? Is he wrong?
Wow.
Well, you know what?
You just went there, dude.
Watch the movie. See if you agree.
That was the line in the script that got him to sign on. He read that and I'm in.
Yeah, isn't there a line like we're utilizing the one resource we have too many of in the world, and it's like girls. Yeah. Okay. There goes your subtlety, I suppose. I just wanted to read out a couple of super chats that came in while we were doing this. One is from Mike Smith, who said, Amandla, and I still can't get over this, Amandla Stenberg used to be named Amanda Stenberg, but she took an L by starring in The Acolyte.
I do like the idea that God himself bestowed an L into her name just so that he could warn people.
I mean, is this just a Hollywood thing? Like, take a regular name and just inject a bunch of extra consonants into it to create something new?
Funny because myself and a few other people I know all had to re-clarify when they first saw her name. It's like, oh, is that a spelling error? It's like, nope, that's real. Amandla.
Yeah, sure, okay. John Gates says Battle Royale between Rey post Rise of Skywalker death and Ahsoka post second death becoming Ahsoka the White. Jackie Riva post second stab wound. Bo-Katan and that assassin from Boba Fett post machine stomach. And Sabine post-stab. Who comes out on top in this battle royale for the ages?
Oh, so I was actually edging towards Rey being the most protected, but it might be Ahsoka. I actually think Dave Filoni will protect Ahsoka more than Rey.
Yeah,
she's space Jesus now, isn't she?
She's. Someone told me she died 3 times in total in canon. Ahsoka. Rey's only died once.
I think she's going to die in the Rey movie.
Those are rookie numbers, Rey. You got to pump those numbers up.
You got to crank it up.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think in terms of combat ability, I'd say Rey because she's all the Jedi, don't you know?
You know, she's got the lightning too.
And she's a Palpatine.
She's got Ahsoka as part of her, so Ahsoka's at a disadvantage there.
Oh, yeah, she's absorbed her into her.
Yeah,
she's
horrible.
Got it. That's like Katamari or something. Awful.
And remember, she's a Palpatine. So she's got a lot of power in that regard.
Sure, yeah. Fucking everything. She's a critical drinker as well. I'm sure I've been absorbed into Rey. Dirty Darty says, lost a bet and had to rewatch Star Wars Episode 9. Was nicely surprised by competent villain Richard E. Grant. Spy in ranks, kills himself. And antenna down. Nah, just move the signal to his ship. Only got killed due to stupid horse charge. Where are the competent villains? Yeah. Fuck.
I mean, I'll give you that.
My mind blanks out that he was in that film. Like, I don't even remember he's in there.
Like, he figures out Hux is the mole and he just gets a gun and shoots him. That's probably the most satisfying part of the film.
Yeah. I miss like guys who are in charge of like galactic militaries who are like not elderly, but older, experienced men or women or whoever that actually look like they're intelligent. They look like they've been in charge of things before and know how to run stuff instead of fucking General Hux, who's like 20 years old and he just yells and screams at people
And
then
fucks up
General Hux
constantly.
had like my mom still washes my undies vibes, honestly.
Yeah.
So
It would
that's
be
how he
like
got-
if
that's
the
how he got
US
completely
military
fucked
was
up.
invading Iraq or something again, and like the guy in charge of it was 22 years old, and he just yells and screams at people. How would that even happen? It would be ludicrous.
It is there is historical precedent for it, but you would need, and it could happen. But this, for example, Napoleon was 24 when he was promoted to general, and he was able to get promoted very quickly because of the political power vacuum left over by all the old guard, Bourbon regime generals leaving France as exiles. So there's precedent for it. If they had taken that kind of historical precedent and applied it to the Star Wars universe and said, okay, well, the Empire's been destroyed, so this is the kind of political vacuum whereby young guys can rise up. But the young guys rising up are rising up on merit, so they have to be absolute geniuses. They have to be a Napoleon or a Ney or a general of that caliber. But no, it's just a comic side relief moron.
Well, if you remember TFA, he's a different character in every film. In TFA, he's quite serious, and he has a sort of competition is implied between him and Kylo for Snoke's approval. One side being the militaristic, and the other being more the Sith, And then there's a crossover, and it was almost interesting.
Vader and
Tarkin.
Yeah,
Tarkin. But actually way more antagonistic to the point it looked like the both of them wanted to kill each other in some way. And you're like, okay, this could be something. Next film, Rian Johnson says when he watched TFA, he thought Hux was a very funny character. He talked about him like he was Jar Jar Binks. And he was like, well, time to fucking work with him in that way. And if you remember, throughout TLJ, Hux is a joke. He's a clown. He makes fun of him constantly. And then the third film, JJ's like, he's a spy. Fuck it. It's like, what the hell is going on?
And it honestly doesn't make sense in any of the canon, because if I remember correctly, they had I had a weird time. I read the Phasma novel because I was like, what an underutilized character with like the coolest uniform. Not at all like Boba Fett. So I read her entire novel, and there's a whole backstory for Hux, and I think his dad was like some other up and coming general and was like really hard on him the whole time. And it's like they just trashed him as a character in general, because Disney.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'd put a lot of that down to Rian Johnson, as MauLer said. It's like it potentially built him up as a fairly competent character in The Force Awakens, and then you get to TLJ, and he's just like, yeah, he's funny. Let's just humiliate him.
Guy's goofy.
Okay, sure. You're never going to come back from that
ground,
either.
break his nose, and slide him across the floor. And it's just like, what are we? I didn't realize this is what we were doing. And Ryan is just like in the audio commentary, be like, hey, he's funny.
He's
I
General
can only imagine how demoralizing it must have been for that actor. Like, he signed up for this thinking, yeah, I'm going to get to be the next Tarkin or whoever, like some iconic villain leading our Empire forces, and then this is what happens to me. Wow. I mean,
I am the spy, and everyone's just like, okay. It's like, what?
I'd love to see him and Oscar Isaac, like how they felt starting that series, and then how they felt the end. Just the two of them in a room talking about it. Just being honest.
What did Oscar Isaac say? I would come back if I need a new fucking house or something.
Yeah.
Got to respect that. The Lone Canuck says, we've talked enough about women's rights. It's time to talk about women's wrongs. God. Brutal.
I've only got so much time.
Yeah, fair. But, we've talked about the Acolyte a little bit, but how about we move from hell up into heaven a little bit with House of the Dragon, because season 2 is upon us, and we've got the first 2 episodes of it, and had a chance to catch up on it, and it's been pretty good so far, I must admit. I don't know how you gentlemen and lady have gotten on with it, but I've quite enjoyed it.
Do we need to be careful of spoilers here, or?
I think we should.
We probably
should. It is good, and I think a lot of people haven't quite gotten around to watching it, so yeah, not do. Don't think we should do spoilers.
Well, first things first.
Do not fear, we won't spoil it for you.
I assume that means everyone who has seen it here recommends it. I know I do.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
I said to you more.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I said to you before I started season 2, like I was a bit worried because Viserys was kind of the glue that held season 1 together, and I was worried like without him in it now. Sorry, that's a little bit of a spoiler, but yeah, I didn't know if we would still have the same character, attachment and the same sort of momentum to carry things forward. But I feel like we do. So the show has definitely picked up from that.
Did Did they get more money for this season, or the same, or less? Or does anyone know? Because I caught up with it last night, the second season, and it looks fantastic. I reckon it's lifted from the first season.
Could be that you're used to watching stuff like Acolyte.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh my goodness, whoa, look at this. Because no, I'm with you on that. Like, Hot D is gorgeous. It's a really, really good looking show, and it's easy to get immersed in the worlds they create. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. It's after coming from the Acolyte that seems so claustrophobic, sets and terrible lighting, and then you go to House of the Dragon, and your brain has to relax into it. Like, it's like, oh my god, this looks beautiful. Oh my god, this shot looks. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers, but it's hard to talk about without going into spoilers. But in episode 2, there's like a procession, and it just was shot so beautifully, and it's like, oh my god, there are people around with talent still. Like, they can actually make things that look fantastic, and it's like you can see the money spent everywhere you look in that show, and then you go to the Acolyte and you're like, where the fuck is the money? It's like the either end of the scale.
Well, it's the careful use of CGI to enhance the stuff that's already real. Like, because some of the sets are practical, real sets, or they're real city streets that they found, to shoot in like European medieval cities that they can dress up to look a bit like King's Landing or wherever, and then just use some CGI to enhance it. That's, I guess, what you want. That's like the gold standard. That's what they did with things like Lord of the Rings back in the day, and it's nice to see it getting replicated here. And it doesn't rely on spectacle to keep your interest. It's just something that is the icing on the cake. The real meat of this is like really good story, good characters, superb performances from a good cast of talented actors, and it just happens to look visually very appealing as well. So it's like, it's exactly what you want in something like this.
I like how through Game of Thrones, just waiting for the dragons to come along. Want to see some dragons, and in this show, they're just there. They use them. They're just part of the show. And then you go back to the Acolyte, and in that, it's like, what did we get there? Oh, we got a really big bug in the dark that like just flew through the trees that you'll never quite see right. It's like, okay, I'll go back to the dragons and watch that in like shots in daylight of them flying around and looking fantastic.
Yeah. Foreshadowing, symbolism, setups and payoffs, subtle performances, subtext, themes. You get the full story package with this thing. And I've already done a stream each on with Gary. We've gone through like what we think is great and bad about each of the episodes, but it's undeniable that you're watching a TV show that has a very good idea of what kind of story it wants to tell, and you get to enjoy it and sort of rip into it in a good way, so to speak. You know what I mean? You get to like chew in and be like, oh yeah, this, and this. Meanwhile, like something like the Acolyte is a completely different experience of just, seeing like, what else have they vomited up this week? You don't take it as seriously.
Here's because we touched upon this earlier, right? The whole like, I'm going to impersonate my twin in order to infiltrate my enemies kind of nonsense. In the Acolyte, it just comes across as farcical and stupid. As MauLer pointed out, House of the Dragon does something very similar. It's not a main character. It's very much a tertiary character that we don't get a huge amount of time with, but you come to know them enough that you care about them. And so when the twin is sent in to impersonate his own twin so that he can get close to someone that they trust, wow, it's tense as fuck, and you actually really care about how this plays out. And I don't want to spoil it, but it was pretty emotionally affecting. I think they did a really good job with this of making you feel the impact on those two characters when they're
the tension was wonderful, and they didn't do any cheap confusion. Like there was the right amount of confusion. Talking about this without giving too much away, the right amount of confusion in the scene, setting it up, it coming together, building the tension was all just done beautifully. Like it was just and enjoyable. You could feel it. You weren't lost in what was going on. Yeah, compared to the Acolyte, and again, it's just like this one episode just will blow Acolyte out of the water.
And the thematic depth as well in terms of the twin story. So with the Acolyte, it's good and bad. It's all very like middle school type ideas of visual symbolism and theme. Whereas in House of Dragon, one of the reasons we have this twin story is because it's trying to get the point across. This is a war that is going to divide the realm straight down family lines. This is going to be a very bitter, divisive, sad, tragic war that's going to pit family against family, and that we see that in the royal family, and we see it. They wanted to show it's not just this doesn't just affect the royals; it affects normal people as well. So you get that with the twins. It's this family divide, this fraternal civil war, which is a horrible, tragic kind of war. All war is tragic, but that's particularly sad when it's family against family, brother against brother. Whereas you look at the Acolyte and it's just good and evil. The Jedi, and this is literally a line from the Acolyte. The Jedi are good. The Jedi are bad.
Oh my fucking god. On that point, right, the two twins make clear in season 1 the primary difference between them, right? One of them takes the honor of their position so seriously they'll tolerate almost anything from the royal family. Meanwhile, the other one's like, no, this breaches the fundamental principles I have in relation to like defending the people.
Yeah,
and
so one of them is like
really-
obeying the letter of the oath, and the other one's obeying the spirit of it.
And so the splinter is really, really interesting. Meanwhile, in the Acolyte, once we find out what the information May has, the other side of the flashback, whatever the fuck, the rest of the season is going to be crippled by that information because it'll mean she should have told her at every opportunity she's had, but she just doesn't. Because we're going to find out that the lesbian space witches something happened to them that was untoward from the Jedi. And the only thing I've got from just TV spots and stuff is the one time we'll actually see Kel Naka, the Wookiee, do anything is he's going to be attacking Master Torbin in that flashback at some point. No idea why, but that's going to be something that happens. So obviously one of the Jedi's, my expectation is mind control. They've kind of set that up, and they foreshadowed it a little bit in some of the flashbacks with the eyes going black. I assume that's what that is. So someone's going to fuck with something. It's going to happen. And May knows about it, but she's not telling Osha anything. And she's like, incredulous as to why she would just not understand her position fully. Meanwhile, with the twins, they both recognize both of each other's positions and that there's nothing much to be said anymore. They're split. It's a immovable object, unstoppable force sort of situation. So yeah, handled way better thematically and with character than the Acolyte. That's just kind of fucking around.
I think,
and like you're sort of saying, MauLer, any criticisms about might be about a choice. Like, I think they could pick up the pace a little bit in House of the Dragon. We're not just completely laughing at the choices or completely laughing at the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, any complaints you've got are just about a choice they've made. They still know what they're doing. They still know how to write a story and shoot a story, a show.
The theme I got, I guess, from the first 2 episodes was the unintended consequences of character choices, where it's like we're going to seek revenge against this specific person for a crime that they've committed. We're going to send someone to do it, but it's going to get completely fucked up and they're going to kill the wrong person, and that's just going to make our situation wildly worse and just escalate a war that's already brewing. And that happens in both of those episodes, and it becomes this tit for tat kind of exchange. And what you see is like the smarter, more restrained, more mature characters who are very much into planning long term and who see the bigger picture getting just consistently like undermined and fucked over by like people who are just complete hotheads who are just reacting to whatever is put in front of them. And like this is how I guess in that kind of environment, that kind of world, this is how wars get started. It's by people acting on their own initiative, doing the thing they're not supposed to do, and upsetting the plans of far smarter people who are not in that position of power to actually directly make decisions.
And you were talking about like Star Wars and missing the older characters that have lived a bit and have some life experience. Like House of the Dragon is the complete opposite. Like we have all that to build on those tensions where Hux is in charge and he's the hothead. Like it's like, how does that work? We've got no one in charge that can actually knows what's going on or has to think about what the enemy's doing. And then,
I just, with House of the Dragon, I just appreciate having interesting characters. And even the ones who are making bad decisions, who are young and inexperienced, you can understand why they're doing the things they're doing because they haven't had the experiences, they haven't had the time, the maturity to learn a bit of restraint and learn how to be rulers. They've been thrust into roles they're not ready for. And they're perhaps doing the best they can under the circumstances. And you get a bit of humanity to them as well. It doesn't make their decisions right or anything. It just means you understand why they're doing the things that they're doing.
In
This-
episode
this is
2, where the hand, again, not giving too much away, is going off at Prince Argon, and
Yes.
just that whole scene is just explaining exactly what's going on, how important this is, and how they're fucking up on both sides, and just just the enjoyment of watching an actor act. That's really good at it. It's so much
Dude,
fun.
when, you know, I think we're okay for spoilers by saying this, but when he says, so Kristen Cole has acted, that just has that shot of Reese Faz where he just slowly turns and looks at him.
Yeah.
And what has he done?
He's just a broken man by the end of that scene, like, because he's lost everything. All his plans are in ruins. He's been stripped of authority and position and stuff. Like, this is a guy who's lost everything basically, and he takes it with such dignity, I suppose, at the time. Because again, like, there's no. Like, if this was Star Wars, if this was Disney writing this, he would break down in tears and like fucking flounce out of the room like a fucking teenager. But they don't, because it's like he's a middle-aged man who conducts himself with a little bit more dignity than that. But you can still see how much this means to him, and he knows his plans are fucked. I appreciate a good, solid performance from a mature actor with a well-written script behind it. It's
and
nice
just having that third character too, when he says, you know, something about watch how you talk to the king, and he's my grandson, it screams back. Just that dynamic in the room, and so much fun to watch, especially again after watching the Acolyte.
And Aegon, Aegon makes a very bad decision in that scene, but it's set up. It's not just like in the Acolyte where characters make bad decisions. You're like, what the fuck was that? Aegon, you see him, you know, drinking with the boys, and he's obviously very emotional, and he something happens that makes him very upset, and he's in a terrible space mentally when he makes that decision. So although the audience knows, okay, that is a terrible decision, we know why he made it. We understand that on an emotional level.
And you understand it so much, you think that's what I would do in that situation if that
especially
had happened.
At that age.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Look at us trying to tiptoe around talking about this great show because we don't want to wreck it. We're the Acolyte.
Well,
as it's on screen, we're just wrecking it.
There's a great line from Otto as well when he's talking about, like, oh, you know, your father had such restraint and forbearance and dignity, and you have none of that. Essentially, that's what he's implying with this guy, and the way it's delivered, it's just like, if only a better man was in charge right now, we would be in such a better position. Like, we could absolutely win this one back, but you're going to destroy everything.
The plan he laid out is so rough, without to get more specific, but so excellent in terms of gaining them favor. And he's such a clever man to have like organized the things that he does. It's so deceptive, but works really well. And then it's all just ruined. And he's like, idiot.
And it was set up so well that as the audience member, you feel that frustration. You know, you can't believe he's done it as well. So
I have a question for the panel. Do you think there's a little bit of meta going on here, whereby so you have the young king who is very his impulse is to, you know, fucking go to war. I want to fight, blood, blood, blood. And you've got Otto Hightower who's trying to calm him down and say, wait, look, we're not ready to go to war yet. Do you think that's kind of the writers looking at the audience and saying, look, we know you want war, we know you want blood, we know you want big battles, because season 1 didn't have that, but just wait, it's coming. Do you think there's a little bit of that going on? That Hightower is kind of the voice of the writers in that sense?
I get the impression it's laying down the groundwork and emphasizing how significant this is. Like, because if it had been a different show, they might have rushed into the battle scenes to give you that big spectacle, and it would mean nothing because you're not invested in it. But the more you lay that groundwork and really emphasize, like, right, when countries go to war with each other, or when a country has a civil war and tears itself apart, that is as horrific as it can be. That is the thing that's going to make or break an entire nation. And so when it happens, it's really significant, and so we're going to take our time building up to it. That's what I got. So when it does happen, we'll be super invested in it.
You can read into it to that degree, Despot. I think the show is that good. Like there's plenty to sort of draw parallels from. I think it's fun. There's so many different lines that you like. Oh shit! I remember when the other character said that at that point in that season, or the way a shot is done, or I'm trying to. The end of episode 1 where the thing happens when
The thing.
Well, when the person who leaves the room quickly, the path she takes is the exact same path that Rhaenyra took in reverse in episode 6 of season 1 to show the child that she gave birth to the queen. I think people.
How do you remember stuff like
No,
that?
I was just thinking, MauLer, like that's amazing. You must have picked the graphic memory.
This is
I'm
something
glad I
I
was
told
the only
people-
one not thinking that.
I've seen people writing about it, and I've been like, "That's a detail." And then I've seen people, and this is to be debated. The performance of the person who left that room in that event.
She was amazing. That was brilliant.
Also, a lot of people were critical of it. Then a lot of people were like, "You have to understand the nature of the character, how she's been portrayed, and there's loads of little clues as to why she's behaving the way that she is." And the actions she's taken are for things that are in the future without her realizing in some ways, because you should watch the show. it's pretty good.
Are we selling you on this? Are we selling the show to you, Jay?
Yes, I don't. I mean, it sounds good. I think I felt kind of burned by season 8 of Game of Thrones, and also I have a really hard time getting into like hardcore fantasy stuff. Like I'm sure I'm gonna get flamed by the chat, but like I've never even seen Lord of the Rings, so Game of Thrones is like, I know it's fine, whatever, it is what it is, but like I kind of had a hard time, and I got into Game of Thrones, and I watched the whole thing with my mom, which was incredibly awkward. So I think just after getting so into it for like months, because I watched it right before season 8 came out, I binged all of it. Like I basically just lived it. And then I think season 8 just was like, I don't even ever want to hear about this property again. But I've seen like so many cool things about it, and like now I feel really lost in this conversation, so I wish I had seen it.
No, I totally get it, and like this is not hardcore fantasy in the way that Lord of the Rings is. Like literally, I guess the only like fantasy element you've really got in this is the dragons, and you could kind of look at them as being like, I don't know, nuclear weapons or whatever. It's the sort of thing you only use as a last resort, because if you use yours, the other side's going to use theirs. That's all it is. So it's really just very like political maneuvering. It's very like character driven. It's what the best of the early seasons of Game of Thrones were before it all went a bit shit.
Yeah,
that's what I liked best about Game of Thrones. Like I remember I was kind of in love with Baelish and how like manipulative he was. So if there's any of that, I'm in.
There's a lot of that, yeah.
There's a lot of that. Did you like the end of his fucking story in Game of Thrones?
Fuck me.
I still maintain
Don't
that
remind
he
me.
deserved better. I loved him.
I remember getting so angry. But what I was going to say is like I was left so pissed off with Game of Thrones that it actually started deleting files in my head. I started forgetting house names and the locations. They had killed my interest in that world. And then Gary was like, "You going to check out House of the Dragon when it comes out?" And I was like, "No, fuck them." They was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to try and get me back with a new show." Like, yeah, that's cute after what you guys did. And then he was like, "I'm going to do a show on it. Do you mind watching it so you can talk about it with me?" And I was like, like, fine.
None of us were excited to watch it.
Yeah, I watched the first episode and I was like, yeah, it's fine. There's stuff in it that's good. Fine. Episode 3, and it's a particular scene in episode 3 where I was watching it. I remember at the time, and I've sort of referenced it a couple of times when we talk about it. I was like, oh shit, I like this show. This is good.
As much as we love to hate on garbage, like the Acolyte and basically any Star Wars show except Andor, it is nice to see a good comeback story. So, for example, Stranger Things was in the fucking season 3 was crap. It had been in decline. Season 2 was bad. Season 3 was awful, and season 4 was really good. Still had problems, but it's a really good season, and they learned from the mistakes. And then to see Game of Thrones, which was a franchise in danger of just being a dead franchise, and like Terminator's a dead franchise, right? Could have been like that. Instead, they brought it back. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see a good comeback story.
And this is where it's so interesting to talk about it with Star Wars in the same show, is that season 8 burned everyone. And instead of attacking the audience or doubling down or going on, they've just come back with a good show that you can't deny. Like, again, I had no interest in watching it, and I think it was hearing Gary talk about it and other people, you guys mentioning that was good. I thought I'd check it out. I only watched the first season a couple of months ago. And you don't attack your audience. You go away, come back with something good, and then the fans will come back. Like you're saying, MauLer, when we were watching it last night and talking to my partner, we started talking about Game of Thrones again, which we hadn't mentioned since watching season 8 because we just blanked it from our mind. And we were like sort of remembering, oh, that's what that happened. And this is there. Oh, that's there, right. And piecing it all together again. And it's bringing back that fun of Game of Thrones, when it was at its peak.
It is such a don't give me hope moment, the fucking Hawkeye from again, like I'm starting to get way better at, off the top of my head, referencing all the house names and generations and locations, and to friends who haven't even seen Game of Thrones but are seeing Hot D, I can help them. I'm not even a book nerd for this stuff, but I know enough that I can help guide. And I'm just like, am I really back? Are we back? I don't know. Are we back?
We're so back, baby. No, it's always nice to feel like the writers have something in store, like that they are smarter than you, or at least that they've concocted a story that you can't predict. And that's kind of where I feel like with House of the Dragon. Like, I know there's reference material that you could consult for this and stuff. I want to avoid it, so I don't know what's going to happen next. But I genuinely feel like because the characters are so nuanced, they're so interesting, I don't know what's going to happen episode to episode, and it doesn't feel like it's sliding into that comfort zone that just kills the tension with TV shows. It's like the early seasons of Game of Thrones, and I hope they can maintain that level of writing quality and unpredictability, because it would be great to have a show like this again. And as Robot Head said, it's nice to know that franchises can come back from the abyss. Like they can listen to fan criticisms, or they can just get new teams of writers in and fix the problems and actually create good stuff again. It's nice to know that it can be done, because it gives you a little bit of hope for a lot of your favorite franchises going forward.
Like what? Drinker, have you got anything in mind?
I'd love it if they got. I'd love it if they got a great team of writers in to work on Star Trek.
You don't think Star Trek's pretty much done? You don't think that coffin's already in the ground?
Well, again, it suggests that if you get the right people on board and start producing really good stories again, maybe episodic television instead of these crazy like season-long arcs that people can just tune into week to week, and they're actually every week it's really good stories, you could probably win people back. I think it could be done. With Star Wars,
funny,
I'm not sure.
The idea though that it's like, which one do you want to save? And there's a selection of about 10,000 franchises all in flames. You're like, which one?
Yeah, God, there's so few left that haven't been destroyed.
Yeah,
there's not much left. It's more a case of salvaging the things that have been damaged but not completely ruined. So. Yeah,
it kind of just feels like Hollywood is playing spin the bottle on what they're going to destroy next.
I mean, fucking Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is finished as a franchise after that last movie. That was the last one to, bite the dust.
Yeah, it went the way of Terminator and Predator, kind of, where it's like they mediocreize it at best, which I did not like the Afterlife or Frozen Empire at all. But
didn't I force you to watch that?
Yeah, I did the open bars. Same day, and I'd never seen Afterlife before, and I wish I'd fucking watched it when it came out, because I hated that movie. But all I heard when it came out, people were pretty like okay on it. And I wish I was there being like, no, it's the
worst. I think one of my biggest regrets as a reviewer is that I gave that fucking movie a mildly positive review, and I want to apologize to the whole of YouTube for that. I'm sorry.
It came with a lot of heart, like a lot of goodwill. It was
also bear in mind it was coming on the back of Ghostbusters 2016. So
right,
there's that as well. Like, let's not forget that thing was an absolute fucking abomination.
Mm-hmm. You mean because you hate women, and that's the only thing that was wrong with Ghostbusters 2016?
Yeah, like, there were 3 women in that. Like, one woman is bad enough. Like, 3 of them. Screw that.
Three of them.
The only, do you know what the look? I love A New Hope. I think it's a very good movie. The biggest problem with it is Princess Leia. They had to have a fucking woman in it.
It's like Alien was great apart from Ripley being
That
there.
Ripley character, yeah. What they pushing that Ripley character? That's crazy.
At least they got Princess Leia into a bikini in the end, so that helped.
They fixed
Yeah, that fixed everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Still not worth it.
They
Still
could just do
wasn't
that
worth
to Ripley.
Yeah. Anyway, well, tell you what, should we do a few the super chats that have come in while we've been bantering away? Because there's been a lot, as it turns out. So yeah, let's try and address a few here. Gatekeepers joined the Fellowship of the Drink, so welcome aboard. Border Keeper says, "Hey, Critical Drinker, I somehow managed to be a regular visitor of Saltier Than Crate on Reddit, and I wondered, would you calm down both sides and just spank Disney so they can make good shows instead of having us fight each other?" I mean, look, if Disney was a physical object that I could spank, I would do it right now on stream in front of 15,000 people. But sadly, it is not. So, yeah, sorry to the guys at Saltier Than Crate. Craig the Bad Guy says, "Cheers to the whole panel. The coolest death scene in movies, I would say Matthew McConaughey in Reign of Fire." I mean, he did go out like a boss there, swinging an axe at a dragon.
You don't forget that scene.
Yeah. For the rest of the panel, though, what do you guys think is the coolest death scene in a movie?
Arnie and T2.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful scene. It's perfect. You know, he I know now why you cried, and then he lowers him, and it's such an emotionally impactful scene. It's perfect.
Well, I thought we were aiming for like badass, awesome, crazy, rather than like emotionally. Because I agree with you, it's one of the best death scenes ever. But you know,
I would say Hudson from Aliens, who just fucking went like full on killmonger for his last 30 seconds of screen time. He was just killing everything in sight. So yeah, I love the fact that he redeemed himself so well as well. So he'd probably be my pick. I don't know about the rest of the panel.
Passion of the Christ.
The entire movie.
That was a cool death scene.
No, despite the many issues I take with mechanically how we got there and everything, Tony's death in Endgame is pretty cool.
That's what I was thinking.
He is Iron Man.
In isolation, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was always going to be quite impactful saying goodbye to a character like Tony, but he did go out saving the entire universe. So, yeah, that's not bad. I'll say that's okay.
Does Palpatine's death still... Sorry, go ahead, Snarky.
Oh, you're good. I was just going to say, I feel like my answer's kind of terrible because it's not a movie, but I still really like Walter White in Breaking Bad. I don't know. I just felt like it really like tied things up for me. And also like by the time we got to the end of Breaking Bad, he was basically like the antagonist of it. So I just felt like, all right, cool. Put a bow on that shit. We're done.
Yeah. Well, his final act should be to save Jesse. And, you know, he had his little Darth Vader moment there where he took down the baddies and went out, you know, and redeemed himself a little bit. So
I know one that always gets shared because it goes beyond the character, even the moment in the film for the narrative. It's just the way they do it. Do you remember Cutler Beckett from Pirates of the Caribbean 3? His death scene where he just walks through his ship as it's getting obliterated by like a bazillion cannonballs. And he's just he's just having an existential crisis. I remember thinking that was fucking badass.
Isn't his final line like, "It's not personal, it's just business" or something?
Yeah.
Then, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. Noah Sprague Studios says the Padawan had anime protagonist powers in that fight. Yeah, she was properly rocking it. And Demion, I don't know you, says, "I like the part where May swaps places with Osha by giving herself a lightsaber haircut. Yet her witch tattoo is in full view. Clever writing."
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's got a giant tattoo on her fucking forehead. And, you know, I know she's got dreadlocks or something, but they don't cover it completely.
People who like desperately defend this retarded show are like, you don't know that Soul might notice really soon. It might be the very next scene. You don't know. You can't complain.
We do know, though. He's not going to notice.
Oh, he should have noticed already. It's dumb as fuck.
Dean D says, do you like owning the games you play? Check out Ross Scott and please support his campaign to stop games being killed at Stop Killing Games. What is this, to stop the spread of digital media and just restore physical? I don't know.
Possibly
I would always
also
buy
objection to a subscription service, because a lot of studios are trying to push gamers towards subscriber services as opposed to just selling them the game. Nintendo, for example, I would love to just buy the fucking Nintendo 64 games from back in the day, because there's really just like 20 games that I want, like maximum. And I would really only, like 4 or 5 would be
Why
fine.
an actual Nintendo 64 like I've got there? It's like it's
but
right
Nintendo,
there, man.
they won't sell them. Like you can play them on the Switch, but in order to do that, you have to subscribe to their service. It's like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. Just give me the games I want. I don't want 100 games. I just want 5 64 games, and that's it. Fucking
for
assholes,
this
man.
monthly rental fee for the rest of your lives, you can rent the right to play our games temporarily until we decide.
I'll just fucking buy a 64, or I'll use an emulator.
Yeah, it's the best way, man. Yeah, I'd always go for physical media. Logan Johnson says, seeing Smilo Ren headbutting lightsabers literally made me bust out laughing. I can't believe Disney or Leslie Headland thought this would be a great idea. Also, once again, congratulations on your last open bar. Glad to be part of it. Cheers, everyone.
It's cheers, and it's a basic storytelling thing. Like, you had to set that shit up. You can't just throw that at the audience with no live action precedent at all. Hello? Like, what are we supposed to do with it? Yeah, because it is funny, because I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but I think it was Robot Head. Like people are jumping at the fucking chance to just be like, you're an idiot for not knowing about cortosis and phrik. You're like, yeah, nah, actually, I'm not.
If you're going to introduce this thing in universe that's never been discussed before in a live action TV show, you have to have the characters ask about it. Like, what the fuck was that made my lightsaber just die for 10 seconds? You know, and then
I mean, it could have been a throwaway line so that my comment section on my videos about it wouldn't have been like, you actual dunce, you moron, go die. I can't believe you didn't know about cortosis. Like, I do other things, man. I didn't read everything. I don't have my Star Wars periodic table tattooed on my forehead.
They're the same people tell you to go touch grass. Then they'll be angry that you don't know this detail.
Right?
I always interpreted that as touch arse, and I kept trying it, but like all those restraining orders,
You're
man.
in trouble. Look, at least you guys are all prepped now with phrik, so you can't get caught off guard with that. That would be embarrassing, you know.
It's 5 feet on the surface of Alderaan.
It was making me laugh my ass off, because I was picturing Lil Platoon putting out those tweets and then reading someone say it's phrik and Palpatine has it. You'd be like, that's funny. You're like, no, that's real. It's like, no, it's not. You're like, no, it's real. And you're like, no, it's fucking not. There's no fucking way.
Snex says Padawan Jeki will return as Master Swiss Cheese after being impaled multiple times by a Disney lightsaber. Also, MauLer, the Forbidden Kingdom on EFAP. There you go.
Yeah, that can happen. I think that's something we wanted to do, actually, so give it time.
B-Chain says, but Kylo can moonwalk and reverse stab people.
He can.
Pinnacle swordsmanship. He can, yeah. It's a slick move, that. Lost says, without more context, Acolyte Episode 3 is actively making the show worse and more confusing. Yeah.
Once we get the other flashback, it'll make Episode 3 redundant. Like, there'll be all the information will be covered in whatever the next flashback is.
I honestly thought you were going to say it's going to make Episode 3 retarded. And I thought, well, they're way ahead of you on
Both
that
would be accurate.
Maybe ultra retarded? Or...
Megatard. Chris says, some fights in CW and Rebels are way better. Clone Wars, sorry. I can believe that, but they're animated, so I'm sure they can be. Jim Reaper says, Hayden and Ewan Kenobi training session is better. I believe that.
I believe that as well.
Because they're actually good at fighting. Poor Ahsoka. I think her fights probably rank as the worst in all of Star Wars, just because, I don't know, Rosario Dawson just can't do fight choreography. And you can see how much she's struggling.
Well, and putting her against Hayden Christensen was just cruel.
Yeah, that really highlighted it, just how slow and lethargic and almost arthritic looking she was.
It's like putting a lawnmower next to an F1 car and shouting, go! You know,
For me,
Unfair.
Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen were just waiting, apparently, the last 2 decades to keep doing this. And Disney Star was like, how do we make money? It can't be by using them in a way that people would enjoy. That wouldn't be it. Let's make the Acolyte.
Yeah,
And
let's do that.
let themselves go, so it wouldn't, now that they're fat and bald and look old. Like, could they get 2 guys that have pretty well hung on to how they looked at 20 years ago?
To me, it's almost as insane as being like Han, Luke, and Leia. Whoa! Don't put them in a scene.
Yeah, fuck that.
That'll be a terrible idea.
Too much interest.
Nobody wants to see that.
Big Hat Legion says a Jedi uses his weapon to defend, never to attack. Yoda. Yeah, interesting that. Aurora uplinks. The current generation doesn't understand human psychology. Well, maybe the current generation of Hollywood writers, like normal people, do, because we are actual humans who live in the real world. I mean,
it's not you need a comprehensive understanding to be able to build some basic stories, but even they just can't seem to figure it out. Just the most surface level, good guy beats bad guy. They're having trouble with that.
Yeah. Pooty Evans says, is it rarer than Beskar? That's the bullshit material.
Apparently, yes.
Shorts out lightsabers. So Beskar can deflect lightsabers, and this cortosis can disable lightsabers. Why then bother with Beskar?
Apparently, it's more brittle than Beskar, and it can only take a few hits before it breaks apart.
Wait. I learned something, right? From Rings of Power. I've learned that you can combine 2 different metals into one. So you get the benefits of both.
No. That sounds insane. I
would imagine you melted together Beskar and this cortosis stuff, and then that's it. You got your perfect armor.
That sounds made up.
That's heresy.
Almost as made up as phrik.
Yeah,
no, that's real. Come on, everyone do that.
Add 5% phrik into that mix, and you've got like the ultimate armor.
What's the better disguise? Maze, lightsaber haircut, or Anatar Sauron's wig?
Ooh,
God,
tough.
Either way, it's fake hair you're dealing with, but I don't know, man. I think the wig fools more people.
The wig is treacherous.
But they were all of them deceived, for another wig was made.
That haircutting scene, could they have made it more awkward? Like, even if she pulled her hair to like a ponytail to the side and then cut it, with the lightsaber or something. It was just the most awkward way you could give yourself a haircut I've ever seen.
Well, it was a L'Oreal moment where she like slow motion, like yeah.
I just think they're so clearly proud of themselves, being like, "Ain't that cool?" She now like she just looks just like her. We were all sitting here like, since episode 1, we've been laughing at the fact that they have the same hair. You idiots!
I was watching Tyrone Magnus talking about this, and he was like, I legit didn't realize that they had different lengths of hair. I never noticed.
Well, you guys can tell what they've done, right? Most people pointed it out. They do have the exact same hair, except the girl with the extensions has extensions. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Very obvious extensions as well, where it's like it's the same all round here and down there, and it's just at the back, it's longer.
And it's darker. Like it's obviously extensions, and she chops them all off with CG, and you're just like, oh, you guys are clever, nice.
Also, again, just like, how did they even? They're 2 different people at first, and then they got more similar as they got older. Like, I don't know. Does it sound to me like Disney could be a problem because they couldn't find another black actress to play the other twin? Maybe we're not the ones at fault here.
The fraternal twins, their acting was just so good that even though they weren't identical, Disney just had to have them.
I see that explains
you can see that on screen.
The Jedi are good. The Jedi are bad.
Yeah. They didn't give you a sense of purpose. All I did was burn down your home and tried to kill you, like burn you alive and murder your family.
What I'm talking about, there's so much. This not going to make any fucking sense when we get the full context. It's going to get so much worse.
Here's the big issue of the day, though. Mozislak says, Drinker, there's not enough overweight representation in the Acolyte. # more fat Jedis. We need more body positivity amongst the Jedis.
Dude,
because this idea that they should be mentally and physically disciplined is reductive and discriminatory. I say to you.
The guy everyone's been calling Jedibetes. Like, imagine he was on the planet and he sees Smiler Red and he turns and starts going, and starts running away. Like, Smiler Red's like,
slowly.
He just walks. He keeps up with him for like...
I do like the idea of like Squid Game guy just saying like, you need to take Osha back to the ship. Run as fast as you can. And he's like, oh fuck,
oh jeez, could you send anyone else?
Don't make me run, I'm full of cake.
I saw somebody on Twitter that called him Cal-lesterol.
Every time we see him, he should be using the force to his fat advantage. Like he should be just floating there because he doesn't want to stand too long. And then just like packets of chips floating around him and coming, like every time he's hungry, food just appears in his hands, just floats across. He just uses it to his full advantage as a fat pig.
I just thoroughly enjoyed.
I want them to do what they did with Nick Frost in The World's End, where he just becomes like the best fighter. Like he just has to get sufficiently enraged and drunk.
I want him to turn Sith so he can be called Darth Fridge Invader.
Oh, brutal!
Ouch.
Noah Sprague Studios says, "Wait, are you telling me that you guys don't know about phrik? What kind of Star Wars fans are you?"
No, we all knew. We knew. It's fine. We got that.
Jason Pemberfoot says, "I guess a Jedi would maybe kind of call me a Sith."
Oh.
Yeah, that was
it's done. It is over. I've seen people try to be like, no, because he said that's what they might have called him. Whatever. It's like when you report this, he fits this description completely, and he even makes reference to Sith. It's over. It's over. The Phantom Menace doesn't make any sense anymore. You did a good job, Disney.
How much evidence do they need that he's a Sith? Like he's literally saying it now. Does he have to have a T-shirt with it written on his T-shirt? I am a Sith.
Hi,
I'm a Sith. Forgetting in Phantom Menace, how much information did Qui-Gon have? It was a guy dressed in black with a red lightsaber attacked me. I'm pretty sure he was a Sith. And it's like, that's never happened before, Qui-Gon. Like, no, it's never happened.
You know his thing as well. Like his whole issue is like, I just want to be able to train acolytes the way I want to train them in the Force, without the Jedi stopping me. And I just thought to myself, an easy way to do that? Just pick a random fucking planet in the middle of nowhere and just go do it. Train as many apprentices as you want. The Jedi are probably never going to find out about it. There's thousands of planets in this galaxy for you to choose.
Yeah.
And he's already doing it. And then he starts attacking the Jedi because he wants to do it. It's like, but you're already doing it. If you hadn't have attacked them, you could have just kept doing it.
Yeah,
his excuse as well, where like he said, I did wear a mask, to keep my identity secret. And it's like, well, you didn't wear a fucking mask when you were on the token white guy's planet waiting for him to get assassinated. You were happy to be in full view of everyone right there.
She exposed me, so I have to kill all of you. It's like, so your issues with her. Like, what do we do? You're killing all of us now. Of course we're going to fucking fight back. You can't blame the Jedi for their point of view about controlling people who use the Force wrong, when in this scenario, you just tried to slaughter them all. Like, that's your interaction with them. It's like, oh yeah, you fucking idiot Jedi defending yourselves from me trying to kill you. Like, oh yeah, you're the one in the right here, bud.
Steve Russ says, the choreographed dance fights are one of the many weaknesses of the prequels. There is also nothing more boring than the inflationary use of lightsabers in Star Wars paired with a cool look.
So
I think what he's saying is like, it's not great to just have a cool looking, highly choreographed lightsaber fight where there's not a whole lot of emotional investment behind it.
That's a big call saying that's the worst part of the prequels, because it's probably the only part I like.
Well, there's the thing. Calling it a dance is both potentially, depending on who's saying it, a compliment or criticism. The dance being like it's all choreographed to the point where nobody's hitting each other; they're just hitting their marks perfectly, right? Or a dance in the sense that two people some people describe like a fucking From Software fights as a dance when you nail them, because you following all the moves, you know where to go, and then you'll get your strikes in where you need to. Seriously, it's about context. The person you're speaking to, do they mean that complimentary or criticism? I think depending on the fight we're talking about, different levels of emotional investment for not only the characters' points of view, but also the characters' like state of being. Like Obi-Wan and Anakin at the end of their fight in Revenge of the Sith, they both look fucking exhausted, sweaty, messed up. They've got plenty of burns. There's a lot about it, I think, that gives a sense that they're really giving it everything. But I mean, everyone knows here that fight goes on for a while. quite a long one.
I would have liked to have seen their technique start to fall apart a little bit, and then it just come down to sheer grit and resilience, I suppose.
Well, I mean,
so they're no longer as
favorite,
highly like technical as they were at the beginning, but they're just like swinging at each other wildly, and it's just pure like emotion that's driving them at that point.
If we could cut out the little bit where they're floating on the platforms, I'd be happy too.
Yeah, you cut it down. But I'd be curious for other answers. But my favorite piece of individual choreography, so removing everything from character, even though I think there's stuff to say in this moment, but it's when Obi-Wan gets to refight Darth Maul once the laser wall comes down. The section there that's about 10 seconds long just has forever been some of the most impressive choreography to me in all of Star Wars lightsaber fighting. Like how fast it is and how much effort looks to be happening in terms of both of them trying to kill each other. And
would you want it to be as controlled as it is, though? Because I'm kind of imagining like Obi-Wan's emotional state in that scene is like he is fucking enraged. He's just watches the master get killed in front of him.
I think that actually is the synthesis that he wanted to capture in the prequels, but wasn't always getting. But I really get the sense that Obi-Wan was furious in that selection.
I get it from his facial expressions, like when he's waiting to get into the action, but it's like once the action starts, it's super like technical and choreographed and very tight.
I disagree.
It's very impressive.
When the camera is getting close, you hear like really fast because both of them look kind of panicked, and then you see Darth Maul's saber break in half, and he looks shocked, and then he's kicked into the back. Like that to me came across as very aggressive and almost recklessly done with success. Like it was a really risky battle, but it came out well. Versus there are other fights that are much more you could call elegant, and maybe the stakes are lower because they don't quite feel as aggressive. This was something that the Disney films got a lot of compliments for in the TFA era, specifically when they first came out. People were like, "Oh, I like the fights because they come across as very recklessly angry and aggressive and uncontrolled from characters that it matches." I think over time, we've all revised our opinions of exactly what the pros and cons of each of the fights in each of the eras are. You know, it's kind of fluid somewhat in terms of figuring it out, but I do think the prequels fluctuate over time in terms of their compliments and, you know, like, I don't want to be a dick, but like the OT have several moments where the choreography is incredibly awkward. And you just sort of, you buy it because you're like, yeah, but, you know, and there's a lot of context for why, and there's plenty of character. It's just this is what I mean. Each of the fights across all the years have different levels of what exactly they're good at and bad at, and I get it.
And at least with Obi-Wan and Maul, well, not at least, it's one of the highlights. Those red laser walls coming between gave us a reason for them to be separated in the fight. Where in the Acolyte, Sol just literally disappears out of the fight every now and then just reappears for no reason whatsoever.
Also, the environment is a really big aspect of those fights. So the Luke and Vader lightsaber fight in Empire Strikes Back is probably my favorite environment for a fight to take place in. And the Duel of Fates is also cool. It just looks amazing, and there's a lot of world building in terms of what's going on there. And so the environment really matters as well.
And I like the casual uses of force in the fight. You have to be careful with, right? Because if you overthrow, it makes you wonder why they're not doing it all the time. But take, for example, when he's up against a wall, Darth Maul, and he quickly tosses something on the floor to the door control to open it up for him. With the
I like that. It's like, because the movie doesn't make a big deal out of it. It doesn't like show you reaction shots or anything. It's just like a quick, that goes over there, door opens. Cool.
And it sort of feels like the force is a little bit distracting to them while they're fighting. Like he can do it quickly open that door and then back into the sort of fight. Where now it just feels like, just use the force. It's so overpowered. You don't need the weapons anymore.
It's one of the reasons that Obi-Wan Vader rematch, the rematch of the century that we were all promised was probably maybe the worst lightsaber duel, because it was just them battling on a big empty rock. And then Obi-Wan lifts
no creativity behind it at all.
Nothing. It's just two guys lumbering. It was it was terrible.
I really hate the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. That fucking
for me, it was until the Acolyte. It was the worst. Like the Acolyte is the worst pound for pound Disney Star Wars show, but Obi-Wan for me might still be the worst just because of how it fucked up those OT characters.
It was the hardest to watch, I reckon. Like
Yeah.
the Acolyte's sort of not hard to watch. It's just funny. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it's clowny.
Yeah, Obi-Wan, that was difficult to watch. Like when he leaves him alive at the end of, he leaves Vader alive.
Oh,
It's just like, fuck, like that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, just kill him. Just kill him. We'll just delete the AT. Because just, yeah.
You can totally
frustrating.
understand why he left him in the prequels. Just like, well, he's fucking just like
he's dead. There's no way
he's on fire. So it's like, yeah, he's done. I don't need to kill him. But this time it's like,
actually
no,
more cruel that he doesn't.
Threat.
It's more cruel that he doesn't kill him. Like, he sort of leaves him there in misery to die.
I've always pictured that he would, like, if he was like, I better make sure he's dead. So he awkwardly, scoots down to the cliff, and then, with the lightsaber, he just goes, and puts it in his head. Like,
it's like, come on, react.
And, like, he turns around, sees Palpatine. Palpatine's like, oh, that's horrible. And everyone's like, what? I put him out of his misery. This was the good thing to do.
Gatekeeper says, love you, Drinker. I was already subscribed but meant to join officially on Open Bar 100 but missed the show working over the road. I've now joined and would like to wish you continued success and good health. I appreciate the content that you guys produce. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And can't guarantee the good health as long as the alcohol consumption holds up. My liver can only take so much, but appreciate it. Satan Slayer says, am I the only one that thought that the Sunday stroll from American Dad, that's how Kamir should have fought?
I'm not sure about that reference. I feel like I should, because I've seen a lot of American Dad, but I don't remember it.
Yeah. Not sure myself. Not really seen it. Metalface Rosie says, I think it's time to have Sitch and Adam on. I think they've spent more hours defending Drinker than anyone else. I don't know. MauLer spent about 30 hours defending me over the years. So
yeah, we've got a few episodes on you. You know,
but I'd have Sitch and Adam on for sure. I'm not sure whether they'd want to, but they're welcome. Mustard Skaven says, anyone else felt like they gave Kamir a Rogue One Vader scene? Oh no, he's unstoppable, just without actually building up his power or threat. I mean, kind of. Like, it just like it came out of nowhere, I suppose. Like, because he's just been this simpering fucking gimp.
At least in Rogue One, you were meant to have understood the OT before watching it, right? In continuity, it is a prequel. But in this, as I mentioned earlier, him being who he is means nothing to me. I don't know what I'm supposed to make of this. I'm just sitting here like, okay, he does that, I guess.
Because he's had no so impact powerful. On the story prior.
He can take on all the Jedi at once with the Force push. He can kill 4 of them in the same fight. But he has a bit of trouble with a Padawan, though.
And moths. I'm going to be bitter about that forever.
Moths, yeah. This is what I mean. It's all just nonsense data to me. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about this guy. I don't care about him. I'm assuming next episode we'll get some lines about his perspective on the Sith or whatever the hell he's supposed to be. And that'll be the true test of if he's got anything interesting to say. I'm going to go ahead and bet not.
Unlikely, yeah. Pooty Evans says, did Ezra Miller walk all the way back to his ship after he escaped the snare to go get his Smilo Ren outfit? I don't think the helmet fit in his bag.
That's a good point.
I would legit love to see that. Yeah, like, oh, no,
run off real fast.
Yeah, I need to look cool for this fight, see? He also says, Babu Frick is the guardian of the Frick mines. I think so.
Yeah, makes sense.
Dearest says, after Alderaan, I am out of fricks to give. Well, it's lucky that the frick always endures, I suppose. It's like the One Ring. Kick the Ladder, it just says heart emoji. Thank you. Steve says, the frick miners are price gouging. They're always out to make more money from their frick. Matt
it feels like it's an obvious thing they will never actually put in the mainstream stuff, because imagine having a character say this, like, he's wearing frick.
Yeah.
What?
Oh god, he's got frick armor on.
That would be pretty frickin' ridiculous.
Yeah. Matt says, to quote Father Jack, frick off. Indeed. Tai Fung says, thoughts on John Carpenter's Starman from 1984. That's Jeff Bridges, I think, that's in that.
It's a strange movie, but I think I only saw it the one time, so I can't say much about it because it was a while ago.
I think in the catalogue of John Carpenter movies, it's not one that I would pick. Really, you know, he's done far better stuff than Starman. So
I haven't seen that since a kid. I can see still images of it, but I couldn't tell you a thing about it.
He's just like an alien that takes on human form, and then he goes on a little adventure.
That's all I remember.
With the main character, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, he gets her pregnant by the end without even asking her permission. So, yeah, It's definitely an 80s movie. Lego My Bacon says, I was thinking about making a diss track for the Acolyte. What are your thoughts? Also, thank you for the streams. I mean, I would say go for it.
Yeah,
Do it.
Definitely.
The views are there.
Yeah. Zodlander says, lightsaber whip. OMG. Oh, well, we still haven't seen that. I want lightsaber nunchucks. Shadowversity would probably completely lose his mind over that. I agree. Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, when is the lightsaber whip going to happen?
I keep
Well,
forgetting.
I
think
honestly forgot that was a thing.
It's going to
Yeah.
be the weapon for the Green Lady, so I assume Soul will contact them and tell them what's happened, and then they're going to come back to this planet. I mean, we've only got 3 episodes left, which is about an hour, so like they better hurry.
So she's going to like whip
yeah.
Ren into submission.
Mm-hmm.
Normally,
whip
you pay extra
footage
for
is
that
still
kind
in-
of thing.
I think the whip footage is still in the jungle, so we might never leave this planet. We'll have the flashback
Maybe.
and then be on the planet.
Yeah, anything to save money, I suppose. They only had $180 million. I mean, come on, let's calm down a little bit. Piotr says, good to see that House of the Dragon repairs the massive damage Game of Thrones Season 8 did. Love it. However, I still seek the catharsis that will only bring Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 6, an unbridled rage. Looks to the long man accusingly.
I don't know what you mean. That was never going to happen, maybe.
How could you cover all the other ones and not fucking do that?
Well, I explained to if you remember.
No, I don't accept your explanations. I want you to do it right now on this stream.
The episode 5 one ended up being like 2.5 hours, and it took months. So like it was so far well over by the time I was getting to the 6th one, and like I was trying to explain it earlier. The part of my spirit that gave a shit about that IP was torn out. It was gone. It was beaten into the fucking ground. They couldn't have killed my interest in something harder than that. Because it's funny, right? People are like, you still watching Star Wars? I'm like, yeah, they still haven't killed my ability to pay attention to Star Wars. But Game of Thrones was actively removing my knowledge of the IP. It was like unprecedented. A lot of people say like the damage done to any individual IP. Is it Star Wars? Is it Doctor Who? Is it Star Trek? And I'm like, never forget Game of Thrones. They annihilated all of the characters. They killed the entire like thematic value of the story. They made insane story choices because D&D were like, yeah, some people figured out that Jon would be the one to fight the Night King, so we decided to just switch it. Like, oh, okay. That's a great fucking idea.
It was such an investment. We'd learnt all these characters. Like, the people making it had got us invested. We invested all that time to work out who the fuck everyone was and where they were. And then you did that to us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hurt.
Yes, it's a question of how far you fall, I suppose, and that fell a long way. Cody Griffin says, I was way more invested in the twins from House of the Dragon. Just saying. Yeah, like we said.
Yeah.
That's how you do good writing. It's amazing how you can take the same premise and make it awesome just with good writing as opposed to idiots. So Uncivilized says, MauLer Ren simply hawk-toed on the lightsabers.
Oh, no.
I can't believe I had to do that. Darius White says, sure, laugh at Phrikite, but Schlurpo's entire party barge is made out of the damn thing. Ha, got you there, didn't I? Well, it's all about the Schlurpos, I think. And Joel Effler says, I think Cortosis was introduced in Knights of the Old Republic games as a way for regular swords to clash with lightsabers. But those games take place 4,000 years before the episode 4. So I think the previous explanation was that it basically doesn't exist anymore.
I want people to have phrik swords. And I want them to say that. I have my phrik sword, don't you worry.
Just, yeah. Is that too much to ask? Is it? A phrik sword? Well, we'll save that for another day, I suppose. I'm probably going to finish up there with the super chats for now, as we always do. We'll catch up on the ones that we missed on our Last Order stream, MauLer and I. But I want to say to everyone who's joined us tonight, chat, thank you for your awesome participation, as you always do. Thank you for all the amazing super chats. And thank you to my great panel of guests for joining us tonight. It's been downright lovely to talk to you, even if we've been discussing an absolute shit show.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet you,
invite.
Snarky Jay.
Had a real blast. Yeah, it was great to meet y'all too. This was a real good time. This
Yeah,
was a
and
good therapy
congratulations
session.
again
I feel
on-
like we're all
Yeah.
close now.
Yeah, we bonded over our shared hatred of this show. So it's bringing so many people together.
you-
It's great.
Drigger, did you see Shad's video? He put himself on fire after this episode. It was funny because he usually does this angry face, and then he put laser eyes, and I was like, he's put laser eyes for like episode 3. He understands there's more to go, right? So what's he gonna do? And yeah, he's just put flames around.
What's next? It's just like he's gonna go full on scanners, and his whole head just explodes. That's what it's going to do to you. Well, we've got 3 episodes to go, so it's going to be, I'm sure, a wild ride between now and the end of the season. But I can't wait to go on it with you guys and everyone else who's willing to join us for it. But for now, at least tonight, that is all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.